This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Neglected Naruto Was a Generational Genius. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
October 10th was the day that most people had come to recognize as being just like any other day, with Konoha's residents and shinobi settling in and falling asleep as midnight gradually drew near. However, none of the Konoha locals were ready for the unexpected assault by the nine-tailed demon fox. As its shinobi started to race towards the fox and defend their houses and families, it started to tear through the village while roaring as loudly as it could. Both the younger generation of Leaf Shinobi and the village residents were taken underground as a result, though the younger shinobi were taken against their will because they wished to defend their homes. A 17-year-old girl with red eyes and raven hair yelled, "We can help fight, don't make just stand here and watch," as a man with similar features stood slightly in front of her, just beyond the reach of the barrier that was keeping them behind. "This fight is for the older generation. If we fail, then it will be up to you, the younger generation, to carry on our will of fire and protect the village." "Kurenai," he said, glancing at the girl with the raven hair. Intent on joining the battle to defend the leaf from the raging Biju, he said, "Become a great kunoichi and makes me a proud father and a proud grandfather one day," before vanishing into a whirlpool of leaves. As her father walked away, Kurenai trembled a little and shed a stray tear before a hand touched her shoulder. Asuma Sarutobi, a 17-year-old recently promoted Jonin, gave her a look that said, "Believe in him and follow his words," as she glanced over her shoulder. She still didn't like it, but she nodded her head in agreement. Anbu Kakashi Hitaki, a current member of her graduating class, and Might Guy, his self-declared eternal rival, stood silently next to her, watching the beast attack their house with emotionless expressions on their faces. She was aware, however, that they shared the same desire to fulfill their responsibilities and stop feeling so helpless in the face of the Kyuubi. They were watching and observing when they heard a little whimper behind them, which caused them to turn around and soften their eyes. 5-year-old Naruto Namikaze was standing behind them, still dressed in his blue pajamas, with a small gray robe wrapped around him and tiny shurikens adorning them. With his tanned skin and blonde hair, he bore a striking resemblance to his father, the fourth Hokage. He also shared his quiet but intelligent demeanor for his age. Nonetheless, he had occasional outbursts of his mother Kushina Uzumaki's personality and had violet eyes like her. A week ago, he celebrated his 5th birthday with his father and his heavily pregnant mother, who was expecting twins. He was born on October 3rd. Although they were pleased that Naruto never became spoiled, his parents loved him and lavished him with attention. Despite being quiet, he was a very kind and playful youngster who adored his parents, particularly his mother Kushina. He had done his best to assist his mother around the house and try to cause her as little stress and trouble as possible because he was thrilled to be a big brother. Minato and Kushina would always smile proudly at him when he spoke to his younger siblings while in his mother's womb. He shifted in his spot a little uneasy as he watched the fox destroy his house and asked, "Where are Ka-chan and 2-san?" In an attempt to comfort him, Kurenai dropped to her knees and lifted him into her arms. "Your Ka-chan and 2-san will be okay, Naruto. Remember, your 2-san is the strongest in the village and your mother is no pushover either," Kakashi wrote in an attempt to cheer up the boys. But Ka-chan has my baby brother and sister in her tummy. What if she gets hurt?" Naruto nodded and watched as he nuzzled into the older girl's neck. "That won't happen, Naru-chan. Your 2-san won't let any harm come to them. You have my word on it," she said. The others remained silent as they watched the fox easily toss the village's shinobi away as they attempted to push the Kyuubi away. When it appeared that the nine tails would charge forward, a huge, long staff struck it in the stomach and began to gradually push the fox out of the village. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was standing atop one of the buildings when the fox turned to see where it had come from. As the younger generation grinned at the appearance of the formidable leaf shinobi, Naruto managed to say, "Gigi," while watching his grandfather-like figure engage the Kyuubi. Naruto saw two powerful energy signatures emerge close by and land right next to the third Hokage as he watched him fight the Kyuubi with long-range assistance from some of the other leaf shinobi. But when Naruto recognized the signatures, he grinned. As the Kurenai, Kakashi, Asuma, and Guy stared at him in bewilderment, unsure of what he was talking about, he declared, "Pervy Sage and Ba-chan are here." When they did, two huge plumes of smoke materialized in front of the Kyuubi, revealing a large purple frog holding a shield and Sasamata in its hands, as well as a large white slug with blue stripes running down its back. The leaf villages of Sannin, Jiraiya and Tsunade were perched atop their heads. The four younger shinobi turned to Naruto in shock as they witnessed Jiraiya and Tsunade start fighting the Kyuubi. They all thought, how did he know they were there? I did not even sense them, but decided to put it out of their minds for the time being and return to it later. Sarutobi said, a little breathless, Jiraiya-kun, Tsunade. Chan, as the two Sannin nodded in his direction. Sensei. If the Kyuubi is here, I can only guess something went wrong with Kushina's while she was in labor? Jiraiya responded. He stole his voice as they both nodded. That seems to be the case. Though I have not seen her or Minato yet, I don't know where they are, but we have to keep the Kyuubi away. No matter what, he said. Everything abruptly fell silent as the fox was about to attack them. Minato then materialized above the Kyuubi's head, appearing somewhat battered, and vanished with the Kyuubi in a yellow flash away from the village. Tsunade inquired, where did they go? As they started looking around before spotting a big explosion a few miles outside the village. Jiraiya said, there, and then the summons followed as the three cage-level shinobi started to run as quickly as they could in the direction of the location. Even though only 4 and a young boy knew it wasn't quite over, the other shinobi cheered as the fourth Hokage and Naruto's father disappeared with the Kyuubi. Shutting his eyes, Naruto looked around for his father. He had always been able to sense people's whereabouts, but he had never mentioned this to anyone. Like the back of his hand, he recognized his parents' signatures. He located them outside the village after a minute of looking, but he could feel his mother was in pain. He felt compelled to approach her and prevent the Kyuubi from causing her harm. He leapt out of Kurenai's embrace and began to run, but Kakashi and Kurenai caught him. Kakashi pleaded, Naruto, you mustn't. Just because the Kyuubi is not there does not mean it is still dangerous, but the little blonde resisted as Kurenai held him, despite his wriggling, gently against her chest. But I have to. Chan is hurt, I know it. She is with 2.San and the Kyuubi. The others' eyes widened at that point. Since they knew the Hokage must have teleported the Kyuubi a considerable distance from the village, they asked themselves, he can sense that far away? Naruto appeared to have a very wide range of human senses. Kurenai nodded when Asuma said, definitely need to look into that on a later date, as having that kind of sensing ability sounded like a true boon. Kurenai remarked, have faith Naru-chan. They will be okay, as Naruto gazed out over the village with his violet eyes. Sight of the battle as several chakra chains were launched from Kushina's back, holding the Kyuubi in place while Gamabunta, the chief toad, was on its back doing his best to keep it pinned down. Kushina took a deep breath. Minato abruptly flashed in front of her a few moments later. He held their newborn daughter, one of the lovely twins his wife had just given birth to. She willed herself to stay awake despite the pain radiating throughout her body from the tearing of the Kyuubi. She couldn't fail the village and her family. I'm sorry, Kushina, but this is the only way, he said gravely. You will perish if we seal the beast back into you, and I cannot allow that to occur. I can't allow Naruto and the twins to live without their mother. A newborn baby was the best option to seal the beast away in, but Kushina did not like it, but she knew it had to be done. It broke her heart to make her children bear such a burden, which she never wanted any of her children to bear. What will we do to seal it? Kushina asked, feeling the Kyuubi struggling against her chakra chains as she attempted to stand up. Despite her expertise in Fuinjutsu, she knew there would be a struggle because the Kyuubi probably did not want to return to be sealed away again, and there were only a few sealing techniques that could contain the nine-tailed fox. I've got a strategy for that. I sense that Sarutobi, Tsunade, and Jiraiya-sensei are en route to this location. We will use the 4-corner sealing technique when they arrive. I'll use the 8 trigrams to seal it away once we've trapped it. Minato, the 4-corner sealing method was intended to keep the Biju up to the 6 tails, but it might not work. Since they only had one chance at this, Kushina expressed concern that the Kyuubi might be too strong for it. I understand, but it's possible if there are 5 cage-level shinobi present and 4 to carry out the ritual. Although it will be difficult, it is possible. Although it was not the best plan, Kushina bit her lip, hoping that the 4-corner barrier seal would be sufficient. The 8 trigrams would definitely hold the Kyuubi. Gamabunta yelled, incoming, as the Kyuubi unchained one of its claws and charged at them. He roared, I will not be sealed away again, indicating that the infant Mito was his target. No, exclaimed Minato and Kushina as they leapt to shield their daughter from danger. As they waited for the blow to come, they were struck from behind by a huge shockwave, and they turned to see Gamaken using his shield to block the Kyuubi claw. 3 voices called out, Minato, and Hiruzen, Tsunade, and Jiraiya emerged next to them. Gamabunta and Gamaken held the Kyuubi in place while Tsunade started to heal Kushina while Minato told them all about the plan. Although they did not enjoy it, the three recently arrived adults looked down at the baby girl with sadness, knowing that she would inevitably face difficult times in her life. Is Naru-chan doing okay? Does anyone know? Considering her eldest and firstborn, Kushina inquired. Last I checked, he was in the protective barrier being looked after by Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, and Kurenai, she said. Observing Hiruzen nod his head, he is not hurt and is safe. Knowing that her Naruto was safe and had escaped the fox's rampage, Kushina nodded and felt a little more at ease. While the other four took the 4 points around the Kyuubi to start the sealing, Hiruzen stood in front of the Kyuubi with the intention of assisting in keeping the Kyuubi at bay while Tsunade healed Kushina's body sufficiently for her to move and access her chakra. He put his hand on the ground from Minato's position, called forth a small altar, and lightly laid his newborn daughter on top of it. She was asleep, which startled him because of all the noise, but he assumed that was for the best. He then started drawing the required symbols in blood around the baby and on the baby girl's stomach. The seal was ready in a moment. Everyone, it's time now, Minato said as Kushina pulled her chains back, causing the nine-tailed fox to roar out of its position. The nine tails was the strongest of the tailed beasts for a reason, and Sarutobi, Gamaken, and Gamabunta tried their hardest to contain it, but it was rapidly escaping their control. As he, Kushina, Jiraiya, and Tsunade prepared, channeled their chakras, and created the required hand seals, Minato nodded to everyone. The four of them yelled, "Dog, snake, boar, tiger, four-corner sealing jutsu," as their blue chakra exploded all around them and started to form a huge net that grew until it was large enough to enclose the Kyuubi. They each held kunai, which they would drive into the ground and hold the Kyuubi in the sealing barrier once the net was firmly in place around the Kyuubi. As the sealing barrier started to enclose the Kyuubi and wrap around him, Gamaken, Gamabunta, and Sarutobi saw the sealing jutsu activate and immediately leapt out of the way. It screamed, "No, I will not be sealed again," after just getting free, as it struggled against the sealing barrier surrounding it, forcing the 4-cage-level shinobi to grit their teeth and forcing Kushina, who had previously been in pain from form, to fight form by fainting. Continue. The others nodded and gritted their teeth as they all poured out more chakra in response to Minato's statement, "We need to use more chakra." Hiruzen extended his adamantine staff and struck the Kyuubi squarely in the nose, causing it to twitch in surprise as it attempted to move. Despite the Kyuubi's constant struggles, Gamabunta and Gamaken came alongside it and slammed into its sides, frightening it with their enormous bodies. Gamabunta said, "Take that, you giant furball," as the net of seals started to envelop the Kyuubi's entire giant form, even though it had declared that it would not be sealed into a brat. Sarutobi stood in front of the Kyuubi, staring it in the red eyes, knowing that the sealing was about to be finished. Even when the Kyuubi turned to face him, he did not show any signs of fear. He uttered the words, "You are too dangerous to be allowed to roam around freely," which caused the Kyuubi to widen their eyes in response to Sarutobi's statement. When the enormous fox demon was being pinned to the ground, Hashirama Senju was standing in front of the Kyuubi. Huge wooden roots were emerging from the ground, encircling the Kyuubi and holding it in submission. "You are too dangerous to be allowed to roam freely," the first Hokage said, gazing into the Kyuubi's eyes with a dejected yet resolute expression. "I'm sorry, but this has to be done to keep the village and the world safe." As the Kyuubi started to struggle against the net of seals, a snarl tore from its mouth, causing the four sealers to struggle for a moment, but the net had already completely encased the Kyuubi. After indicating that she was finished, Kushina drove her kunai into the ground, followed by Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Minato. The Kyuubi roared, "No," and Minato hurled one of his 3-pronged kunai at its head, scattering an 8-trigram seal on top of it. Before applying the required hand seals, Minato cast a sorrowful and contrite glance down at his daughter. He yelled, 8-trigram seal, as the kanji and blood marking he had previously created started to transfer onto the baby's stomach and form a spiral with 8 symbols surrounding Ida 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom. The 8-trigram seal appeared on the Kyuubi's stomach before it simply transformed into a cluster of chakra. The Kyuubi's body changed in a giant shroud of orange chakra as it continued to attempt to break out of the 4-corner sealing barrier. With a final roar that seemed to reverberate and surpass the others, the Kyuubi started to be drawn into the 8-trigram seal on Mito's stomach. Eventually, the Kyuubi disappeared entirely, leaving only the 5 shinobi and a baby in the vicinity. When it was all over, there was only silence as everyone stared at the baby solemnly, thinking about how unfair it was that she had to bear such a heavy burden just an hour after her birth. Mito, Kushina muttered as she approached her daughter, but the weight of the ceiling and obtaining the Kyuubi eventually caught up with her, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground due to sheer exhaustion. Tsunade held the young girl in her arms and watched as Minato yelled, "Kushina," before running to his wife. Minato held her tenderly in his lap, a worried expression on his face as the four materialized around her. Tsunade checked her breathing and pulse, but she smiled and exhaled easily, saying, "She will be fine. She is simply worn out, which I don't find surprising considering what she has endured today. Let us transport them both to the medical facility. To be safe, I have a few Chunin bodyguards in addition to the nurses who are caring for Eiji." As Tsunade nodded, Minato added, "And we have a private room set up for her which we were going to transfer her to once the twins were born. Make sure to put her to bed right away after flashing her there. Her Uzumaki blood will take care of the rest, but she will be weak for a few days." As he picked Kushina up in bridal style, Minato nodded in agreement. "And take me with you so that I can check on the other bay," she said. Minato was about to leave when he turned to face Sarutobi with a pained expression on his face and said, "Sarutobi, I am sorry I could not protect Bawako," in an attempt to express his sympathies to the elder Hokage. The third's face took on a sorrowful expression as he silently lamented his wife's passing, but he knew that this would have to wait until later, so for the time being he simply thanked Minato and gave Jiraiya a shoulder pat. This time, Minato was about to flash when Tsunade, Mito still in her arms, grabbed his sleeve, but he had another idea. "Naruto. Naruto will have to be picked up by someone." "I can do that," Hiruzen said before Jiraiya could offer to get him, "since he will undoubtedly want to make sure his family is safe. I will take him to the hospital." Kushina, Tsunade, and Mito vanished in a flash of yellow after Minato nodded his gratitude. Sarutobi and Jiraiya left for the village, no longer needing to remain there. In the village, what's going on? As the barrier preventing them from leaving vanished and some of the Chunin and Jonin who had fought the Kyuubi emerged in front of them, Naruto asked for Kurenai's arms. The younger generation cheered, with the exception of young Naruto, who was only interested in finding his Ka, Chan and 2-San. They described how the Kyuubi was defeated, but they never specified how. The young child Naruto heard Sarutobi approaching him as he glanced over from all the commotion around him. "Gigi." Naruto sobbed as he leapt from Kurenai's arms and into the elderly Hokage's embrace. "Where are 2-San and Ka, Chan? Are they all right?" His eyes threatened to well up again as he asked. Although Sarutobi did his best to calm and soothe him, he knew the boy wanted to see his parents. "They are fine, Naruto. They are at the hospital with Tsunade, Jiraiya and your baby brother and sister." When Naruto heard brother and sister, his eyes widened a bit, which only increased his desire to arrive sooner. As Naruto nodded his head rapidly, he said, "Your mother will probably be asleep, so remember to be quiet when we get there since today has been very taxing for her." Sarutobi swiftly left for the hospital after saying goodbye and thanking Kurenai, Asuma, Guy, and Kakashi for taking care of him during this difficult time. It didn't take him long, but when he finally arrived at the hospital, everything was hurried as stretchers carrying patients were brought in, and some nurses were tending to the injured in the hallways or lobbies. He saw Shizune, Tsunade's apprentice, helping a young Kunoichi and ordering a few nurses, demonstrating the rapid progress of her studies with Tsunade. "Gigi, will all of these people be alright?" Naruto inquired as he observed all of the injured shinobi. "They will eventually. Many people were injured as a result of their fierce battle tonight, but they will quickly get back on their feet thanks to Tsunade and some of the best doctors in Konoha," he said, and Naruto nodded. Before they reached the prenatal zone, they ascended several flights of stairs. Naruto noticed several pregnant women nearby who had been admitted to the hospital to check on their unborn children, including his mother's friend Hitomi Hyuga, who, as far as he knew, was expecting a young girl. Sarutobi led them out of that small space and down a silent hallway, coming to a halt at the third on the right. Sarutobi said, "Here we go," and Naruto opened the door and entered. He saw his father, Jiraiya, and Tsunade in the corner of the room, talking solemnly, and he noticed that they were all looking exhausted, especially Minato, whose clothes were torn in a few places. He rubbed his eyes a little. 2-San, Naruto called softly, recalling Sarutobi's comment that he should keep quiet, and he noticed Minato turn to face him with a smile. After saying, "Naru-chan," he walked out of the corner and picked up his son from Sarutobi. 2-San, "I missed you." As his father held him close and tried to comfort him, Naruto started to cry and said, "I thought you and Ka-chan were hurt." Naru. Chan, don't worry. Together, your Ka. Chan and I are quite powerful. He tried to make his son smile, but all he did was sob more intensely. It will take more than that overgrown fuzzball to hurt us, he said. Hey Naruto. Chan, would you like to see your new baby brother and sister? He asked, forcing Naruto to look at him in an attempt to soothe his son. Minato grinned and escorted Naruto to the opposite side of the room, while Naruto's eyes widened slightly but he nodded his head. Ka. Chan, Naruto said, turning to face Kushina, who was dozing on the bed with her red hair swept to one side. Naruto, she's all right. She just needs some rest after a long and exhausting night. As they arrived at their destination, Minato remarked, I know she was very worried about you, but I know she will be very happy to see you in the morning. Next to Kushina's bed was a cot with two small bundles sleeping soundly inside, one wrapped in a blue blanket and the other in blue. The boy had blonde hair with a faint red streak in it, and his skin was tanned like Naruto and Minato's. The young girl's skin was a lighter shade than Kushina's, but she had hair similar to her twin. Naruto saw that the little girl had whisker-like marks on her cheeks, which were more distinct and noticeable than those on his younger brother. With Naruto still in his arms, Minato leaned down and said, Naru. Chan, I would like you to meet your brother and sister Eiji and Mito Uzumaki Namikaze. The twins were sleeping. With a slight gasp, Naruto turned to face his younger siblings and reached out with his right hand to caress his sister's cheek. Mito. Chan, he said, a smile spreading across his face. Considering that the twins' birth, which should have been a happy occasion, was cut short by a madman in the attack, Minato, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Sarutobi grinned as they watched Naruto interact with his two new siblings. It was nice to see something positive happen after such a long day and all the tragic events that had transpired. He repeated the action with Eiji, laughing when the infant wrinkled his nose. May I hold them, 2-san? Gazing directly into his father's eyes, Naruto asked. Okay, but one at a time, Minato said, grinning and nodding as he set Naruto down and the boy took a seat next to him. Minato picked up Mito and walked over to Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya sat next to him, staring down at the young girl. Remember to be careful of her head, he said to his oldest son, who nodded and gently placed her in Naruto's arm. She rested in Naruto's arms, but since he was only 5, she also lay across his lap. Her small body was against his. As Minato watched him with Eiji curled up in his arms, Naruto said, Hi Mito. Chan, I'm your big brother, which caused the others to smile. Mito's eyes flickered as he was speaking, and then she opened them to see a pair of blue eyes staring up at him. He said, She has your eyes 2-san, as he glanced up at his father, who was now slightly ahead of him. He remarked, It seems she does and it looks like Eiji has the same eyes too, indicating that Eiji was now awake as well and that his eyes were similar to his. When Naruto looked down at his sister, he noticed that she was staring up at him with a puzzled expression, as though she was trying to figure out who he was. After the two appeared to be competing with each other in staring, Mito burst out laughing with a quiet, melodic laugh that made everyone happy. Minato remarked, I think she likes you Naru-chan, with a hint of laughter. When a weary voice asked, What's not to like about my little Naru-chan? They turned to see Kushina smiling and gazing at the scene with her eyes open. Kushina, the adults all exclaimed, astonished to see her awake, as Naruto turned to face his mother and a fresh batch of tears started to well up. He handed Mito to Tsunade, who gladly took the young girl, and then he headed over to Kushina. He said, Ka-chan, and climbed onto her bed to lie beside her. Naru-chan, stop crying. Everything is fine, she said gently, but he was soon embracing her as she put her arms around him and kissed the top of his head. Ka-chan, I thought you were hurt. As Kushina tried to soothe her by rubbing his back in soothing circles, he sobbed, I was worried. His statement, I felt you and 2-san and you felt hurt with the big vile horrible chakra nearby, attracted everyone's attention. What do you mean, Naruto? You felt everyone? With a curious expression on his face, Minato asked, glancing at his son. I'm not sure how to explain it. I had a sense of everyone's location. I sensed that you and Ka-chan were not in the village when Pervy Sage and Ba-chan appeared on their large animals. The question, Naru-chan, can describe what you felt when you sensed your parents, piqued Sarutobi's interest. Well, I sensed that 2-san was at ease but also anxious and a little afraid. Though exhausted and irritated, Ka-chan felt warm. Then there was that large chakra, which seemed large. It seemed to go on forever and was really gloomy. Naruto's description caught everyone off guard. A sensor? Jiraiya exclaimed in surprise. Naruto possesses a sensor. Like ability of some sort. And it is strong and long. Range if it can sense the two of you nearly 2 miles from the village. Although they were a little concerned, Minato and Kushina looked at Naruto with a certain pride. They had planned to start training him at age 6, but now that these sensor-like abilities had surfaced, they knew it was time to start a year early, and they could tell by the large chakra he claimed to be able to feel that it was the Kyuubi. They knew they would be very busy with the twins, Mito being a Jinchuriki, and making sure the seal was functioning properly, in addition to repairing the village from the damage caused by the attack, so they weren't sure how to train him. Without noticing Naruto slowly dozing off in his mother's arms, the adults started discussing the night's events and his unexpected new ability. The majority of the buildings destroyed were in the front half of the village, leaving the back half mostly intact, fortunately including the hospital, the academy, the graveyard, and most of the shinobi clan compounds. A month after the attack, life in the Leaf Village gradually started to return to normal as the civilians and shinobi of the Leaf collaborated to repair the damage the Kyuubi had caused. Fortunately, the Inuzuka and the Aburame were the only clan compounds damaged, and they were rebuilt and returned to normal in a matter of weeks. In order to demonstrate that the Leaf was still strong and that they were not going anywhere, large groups of Leaf shinobi went out to finish the daily missions they were given while the civilians and shinobi worked away to help rebuild their homes. The Uzumaki Namikaze family could have lived in the Hokage mansion or had their own clan compound, but Minato and Kushina never wanted the big, lavish lifestyle. They were more than happy with their 6-bedroom house, which has a warm, inviting, and family-like feel to it, and with only 5 of them, there was simply no need for a large clan compound. At the Namikaze residence, everything was quiet until a baby's cry sounded throughout the house, alerting those inside. After rushing from his room, Naruto entered the nursery and saw his mother rocking and holding his sister Mito until she fell asleep. Chan, is Mito-chan alright? As he saw Mito's wriggling form in his mother's arms, he asked as he walked in front of her. Kushina grinned as she turned to face her eldest son, saying, "Yes, Naru-chan, she is fine. She's simply being a bit picky. When he was this age, she seemed to have a lot of energy, like another little someone." She laughed a little at his broad smile. As Naruto turned to face the crib, he saw that his younger brother Eiji was still sleeping soundly. He had observed that both babies were quite active, but they never appeared to wake up simultaneously during the night. He noticed his mother yawning slightly. "Are you alright, Chan?" With an anxious expression on his face, he touched his mother's sleeve and said, "You look sleepy." She gently put Mito back in the crib and saw that she remained quiet, nodding her head slightly and noticing that her eyes were starting to go back to sleep. "Naru-chan, don't be concerned about me. I'm just a little worn out. That's what happens to someone who has 2 new babies," she assured him. "I will be fine, I promise." Naruto nodded, although his slight frown suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Just as Kushina was ready to move, she noticed Naruto carrying a book. "What do you have there, Naru-chan?" she asked, gently removing the book from his hands and crouching in front of him. She noticed that the book read, "Chakra for Beginners," and she glanced at Naruto, who was shuffling a little. Like his 2-san and Chan, does my little Naru-chan aspire to be a ninja? She asked teasingly and saw him nod his head though he was looking down at floor in embarrassment. What brought this on? He whispered to himself, I want to get strong so I can protect you," but Kushina heard him and was taken aback by his response. "To keep me safe?" Her voice was sweet as she spoke. He sniffled a little and said, "To protect you and 2-san, Mito-chan, and Eiji-chan too. I don't want you to get hurt again." He could feel his mother's arms encircling him. "My brave little Naru-chan. How lucky am I to have you as my baby," Kushina said, grinning as she kissed the top of his head. She leaned back, cupped his face in her hands, and kissed the tip of his nose, causing him to wrinkle, saying, "My big strong boy. Are you able to assist me?" Knowing that his mother was a formidable shinobi on par with his Chan Tsunade, he asked with a hopeful expression. Kushina gave Naruto a slight disappointment by biting her lip and shaking her head. "I'm sorry, Naru-chan, but right now I'm too busy to assist you. In addition, some of the other mothers will be visiting me shortly. I wish I could help, but that will have to wait until later." She smiled and said, "But hey," to him. "Why don't you ask you 2-san? I'm sure he would like to help you," she replied. After giving it some thought, Naruto nodded. He smiled and said, "I guess I could." I'm sorry again, Naru-chan. His mother smiled as he left the room, saying, "It's okay, Ka-chan, you're busy, so another time." She was a little let down that she couldn't train him, but she simply didn't have the time because she was so busy. She invited some of the other new shinobi mothers to visit so they could all meet Mito and Eiji and catch up. Makoto Uchiha, her childhood rival and oldest friend, was bringing her youngest son Sasuke along. After that, Sume Inuzuka arrived with her son Kiba. After that, Yoshino Nara and Inori Yamanaka arrived with their infant children, Shikamaru and Ino. She continued working and getting the living room ready for the other mothers to visit, shaking her head in the knowledge that she could assist him at a later time. In the meantime, Naruto knocked on the door of his father's office at the back of the house. He heard someone say, "Come in," so he opened the door and entered. When Naruto entered, Minato was bent over his desk completing some paperwork. In order to be available to assist Kushina with the twins in the event that he needed it, he has been spending some time in his home office since the twins were born rather than in the Hokage office. He said, "Hey Naru-chan," as he saw Naruto enter. His son gave him a little laugh as he picked Naruto up and placed him on his lap. He inquired, "Is your Ka-chan okay?" to find out how his wife was doing. "She is okay. She is getting ready for some of the others' mommies when they come over." They both laughed as he said, "Ah, well then we best stay out of the way. You know what your Ka-chan is like when her girly friends come over." Whether it was about something as trivial as who can cook the best or who has won the most matches in their previous spars, Kushina and Makoto always ended up fighting whenever the other moms got together. The rivalry between the two, even when they were pregnant, drove both husbands into the insane house. Looking at his son, Minato questioned, "So, is there anything you need, Naru-chan?" With a nod, Naruto showed him the book. Minato smiled at the title after taking a look at the cover. Minato and the others were still a little shocked that Naruto had it because there had been no prior indication of it, leading them to believe that Naruto was either unaware of it or that it only appeared during the attack. "So you want to start training to become a shinobi? You have already impressed me and the others with those sensor abilities you seem to have." Once more, Naruto nodded. "I was wondering if you could teach me how to use chakra since I want to get strong." "And why do you want to get strong, Naru-chan?" he inquired. The young boy in his lap remarked, "So I can protect my family and the village." When Minato heard what he had to say, she grinned broadly and tousled Naruto's hair. "That's a great reason for wanting to get strong, Naru-chan. If you have a goal like that, then you will definitely become a strong shinobi one day." "You think so?" Naruto asked naively, implying that Kushina would have given him a firm embrace if she had been present. Naruto grinned as Minato replied, "I know so." In the hopes that his father would agree, he asked To-san, "So do you think you could help me train?" But when he saw him shake his head while wearing an apologetic expression, his hopes were crushed. "I am sorry, Naru-chan, but I am too busy right now. I need to get this paperwork done soon and then I have a meeting in half an hour. I don't have the time." With a sad expression, Naruto said, "Oh," wondering who could help him now that his father was unable to assist him either. He hoped it wouldn't depress him. "Maybe another time, huh? I can show you a few cool moves and I am sure your mother would like to show you a thing of two." Naruto reclaimed the book from Minato and said, "Okay To-chan." He moved away from his father's lap and headed for the door. His father was about to return to work when he asked, "To-chan, is it okay to go down to the park?" Minato nibbled on his lip. Although he did not mind Naruto going to the park, he did not want him to go out alone because he was only 5 years old. A few months ago, he made that mistake, and as a result, his wife, who was furious and worried about where her baby was, beat him up. Needless to say, when he returned with Sarutobi, he was nearly strangled by the embrace his mother gave him. When he said, "Well, I guess that would be okay, but I want you back here by 3 o'clock, Naruto nodded. "And you only go to the one that is a few minutes away, not the one in the center of the village." He gave a second nod. Naruto nodded once more before Minato let out a sigh. "Plus you have to have an Anbu follow you." "Alright, go on and have fun. But be careful." He said, "I will too-chan, I promise," and left. After letting out another sigh, Minato called out Anbu. As he did, a male Anbu wearing a lion mask materialized at his side. "Follow my son and make sure he does not get into any trouble or gets hurt." The Anbu said, "Hi Hokage-sama," and then he walked away, leaving Minato to resume his work. Alongside Naruto, when Naruto arrived at the little park, he discovered that it was deserted and that the swing seats were only being moved by the wind. His father took him here when he wasn't too busy, but his mother took him here most of the time when she could. Despite its small size, the park was close by and a quiet place he always liked. When Naruto first began talking, Minato and Kushina had observed that about him. Naruto had always kept to himself and only really talked when it was necessary or worthwhile. However, he was very courteous when he did, which many found admirable because most people his age tended to say whatever came to mind. He walked over, took a seat, and started to swing slowly before turning to face the book he was holding. The other day, while Kakashi was showing him around the village, he had purchased this book from a shinobi bookshop. Evidently, Naruto pouted because Kakashi had to gather some sort of book that he was not permitted to view. Naruto was examining the shinobi section during that time. He picked up the Chakra for Beginners book even though he had trouble reading most of the titles. Then he requested that Kakashi get it for him. To Naruto's delight, Kakashi glanced at the book once before shrugging and paying for it. Naruto opened the book and attempted to read, but he found that some of the words were a bit too long and that he had trouble pronouncing them correctly. He squinted his eyes and sat there for 10 minutes or so trying to read it before becoming a little impatient and setting the book down on the floor next to him. When he started to swing, he asked himself, how can I be a good ninja like Ka-chan and 2-san if I can't even read well? He felt a rather powerful energy reside on the roof he was looking up on. Maybe that is the Anbu-san 2-san sent to watch over me, he considered. A voice called to him from behind after a few more minutes of silence. His expression lightened slightly as he turned to look behind him and saw Shizune, his Ba-chan's apprentice, approaching him with Tsunade's pet pig Tun in her arms and her customary warm smile. He said courteously, "Hi Shizune-san," as the 17-year-old medic Nin sat down beside him. She always thought he was cute and adorable, and he had met her a few times when Tsunade came to visit his family. She was also always very nice to him. She tapped his nose and said, "Hello Naru-chan. What did I tell you about calling me San? You can either call me Shizune-chan or Shizune-chan." Naruto grinned slightly as he nodded. She smiled as he said, "Okay Ne-chan." Oink, oink. Naruto petted Tun while giggling a little. He nuzzled his leg and said, "Hi Tun. Now what are you doing here all by yourself? Is your Ka-chan or 2-san not here?" They were busy. Ka-chan has the others' clan mommies over for lunch and 2-san is busy with paperwork. Since she knew Tsunade was at the hospital ensuring that the staff did not take it easy, she inquired, "What about Kakashi or Jiraiya?" Once more, Naruto shook his head. Shizune questioned, "So you are here all by yourself?" Because he didn't like that Naruto was by himself. Again, he shook his head. Shizune looked up as he pointed to the nearby building's roof and said, "No, the Anbu-san is up on the roof though he feels a little bored." With a somewhat doubtful expression, she questioned, "The Anbu is up there? How do you know?" "I can feel him up there." When Shizune thought, "Oh, that's right, Lady Tsunade mentioned Naruto had some kind of sensor ability. Though I wonder how strong it is. For one so young to have sensor abilities was quite a feat in itself." It demonstrated to her Naruto's potential strength as he grew older, since shinobi who could sense other people were highly regarded and respected by others, plus sensors were always advantageous. When Naruto was struggling with his tiny shoulders, she questioned, "Then how come you could not feel me coming towards you?" He pouted a little and said, "I don't know. I was not really paying attention," which made Shizune laugh into her sleeve. She wanted to see how well these sensor abilities worked, so she asked, "So do you think you could tell me what I am feeling at the moment?" Naruto looked at Shizune and began, "URM." But when he tried to concentrate, Shizune had to force herself not to cuddle him because he looked so cute. After a minute or so of silence, Naruto finally responded, "You feel happy and cheery but a little cheeky as well," he said. Shizune showed her admiration by clapping her hands when he did. "That's very good Naru-chan. I see your Ba-chan's not over-exaggerating when she said you had sensor ability. You could become a very strong ninja just like your parents with that ability." "Really? You think I can?" 2-san I could be strong because I want to protect my family and the village," he let out a gasp. Before grabbing him and starting to tickle his stomach, she remarked, "Then your 2-san is a very smart man." He exclaimed, "No Ne-chan stop it tickles." Shizune laughed, and Tun appeared to be attempting to connect with him by licking his ear. As she sat up and watched Tun lick Naruto, causing him to laugh aloud, she noticed the book on the side and went to retrieve it. She read Chakra for Beginners, then grinned and turned to face Naruto. As Naruto sat up after Tun stopped licking him and she noticed him nod his head. She asked, Naru-chan, did you come here to try and learn how to be a ninja? He looked a little embarrassed, but the 17-year-old gently raised his head with her index finger and said, I tried to but I could not read it. There were too many big words and I did not understand it very well. Don't worry Naru-chan, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. I think it is a good thing that you are trying to learn this. It shows that you understand that to be a ninja you have to start right at the bottom and work your way up. She nodded as he asked, really? With a hopeful expression on his face, she said, if you like, I can go over it with you and teach you how to access your chakra. Really, you would do that? Don't you have other things you need to do today? I already finished my shift at the hospital and it is either help you or get bored sitting at home. And how could I ever not want to help little Naru-chan? Leaning against the swing bars, she lifted Naruto from his position and placed him in her lap. They started reading together after the book was put in front of them. Chakra is a blend of the physical and spiritual energy of the body. Every jutsu technique that has been developed and will be developed requires it. Once shaped, it can be directed to any of the body's 361 chakra points via the chakra circulatory system, which functions similarly to the blood circulatory system. Through a variety of techniques, the most popular being hand seals. In addition to taijutsu, hand seals practice a variety of ninjutsu, genjutsu, and other secret arts. Hand seals control the precise amount of chakra required to execute a basic technique. From the most basic jutsu to the most dynamic and potent, this will differ. Bird, boar, dog, dragon, ox, tiger, serpent, rat, horse, monkey, hare, and ram are the hand seals. Shizune read Naruto about chakra and clarified some of the parts he did not fully understand while the two sat there for approximately an hour. She also pointed out the locations of specific chakra points on her arms to ensure he understood what chakra was and how many there were in the body. He was sitting on her lap when she asked, do you understand Naruto? He nodded as he studied one of the images that showed the union of spiritual and physical energies to form chakra. He seemed a little eager to get started, so he asked, can we try to see if I can use my chakra? Shizune said kindly, sure, as Naruto leapt from her lap and took a seat in front of her. She instructed Naruto to get in a meditative pose like I am doing, while he watched and attempted it on his own, though Shizune had to assist him somewhat because his legs were still very small. You comfortable? She inquired, and Naruto nodded his head before she started. Okay Naruto-chan, first I want to make this hand sign. This is the Ram hand sign. Using any one of the hand signs will help to bring out your chakra and bring it to the surface. The Ram hand sign is the one most used when starting out to first draw their chakra. He tried to imitate the hand signal Shizune was giving him and asked, like this? Before he got it just right, she watched and slightly adjusted it with two of his fingers. Now to draw out your chakra you have to dig deep inside and try to draw it out. Search deep down and wait until you feel a warm sensation in your stomach. When you feel it, try to focus in on it and then pull it out to the surface. I will demonstrate. Shizune closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and then exhaled as Naruto watched. About 10 seconds later, Shizune gave Naruto a powerful energy boost that took him by surprise. Even though it wasn't nearly as large as his two Sans or Ka-chan, he could feel the warmth of it and the way it flowed from her. He could just barely see a blue aura enveloping her if he narrowed his eyes. When she stopped and opened her eyes, he asked, was that chakra? The blue thing around you? It was. It will be a light blue color and visible around you if you are able to surge out enough chakra. She said, now it's your turn, and he nodded. But don't be upset if you can't do it, Naru-chan. Activating your chakra for the first time takes time. He eagerly replied, okay, but I will try my best, while Shizune grinned and stroked Tun, who was at her side. She saw Naruto close his eyes and take deep breaths, just like she had just done. His Ram hand sign was trembling a little, but she could tell that he was a little anxious because he clearly didn't want to disappoint her. Inquiring as to whether his Hokage's son would be able to activate his chakra for the first time, the Anbu assigned to watch Naruto up on the building leaned forward to gain a better view, but he was still out of sight. A few minutes later, Naruto opened his eyes and said, I couldn't find it, with a dejected expression on his face. That warm sensation in my stomach did not exist. I did mention that you might not be able to do it the first time, so don't worry, Naru-chan. Initially, it requires several attempts. It will happen eventually if you just keep trying. He closed his eyes, took several deep breaths, and returned to his meditative pose, making the Ram hand sign once more. Okay, I guess I can try again, he said. Shizune watches once more as Tun looks at him. His thoughts were, I have to find a pull in my tummy, and he searched around as calmly as possible. After another minute, he was still unable to feel it, so he gritted his teeth a little. In order to defend Chan, 2-san, Mito, Chan, and Eiji Chan, I must unlock my chakra. Until I find it, I won't give up, he thought. After finishing, he felt a tug in his stomach and a warm sensation there. Could this be my chakra? He asked himself before following Shizune's instructions and focusing on the warning feeling and drawing it to the surface. When he did, his fingers and toes tingled and it felt as though his entire body had suddenly warmed up. Shizune was about to approach Naruto to give him a heartfelt hug for successfully activating his chakra for the first time when she noticed a small blue aura surrounding him, but she was taken aback by the size of his chakra. The size of his chakra is already comparable to that of fresh genin. Is this a result of his Uzumaki ancestry? When Kushina-sama first activated her chakras, I don't think she had this much, even though I know she had a lot when she was younger. However, she could also sense how wild it felt. Naruto would probably need to be shown one of the fundamental chakra control exercises once he became accustomed to using his chakra. Though his mask concealed it, the Anbu was a little taken aback up on the building, though he wasn't particularly shocked given who his parents were. He opened his eyes to see Shizune and Tun staring at him with happy expressions, which caused him to smile broadly. Shizune shook Naruto a little, which caused him to lose concentration and the chakra he was emitting to stop. He jumped up and exclaimed, I did it. However, as soon as he did, he felt exhausted and his body went a little rigid, causing him to fall to the ground. When the Anbu on the build saw Naruto fall, he was about to move, but Shizune was in front of him and held him in a warm embrace. Shizune had it covered. What is causing my drowsiness? He yawned in Shizune's arms and asked. You feel exhausted now because you expended a lot of chakra when you activated it, silly Naru-chan. As Tun nuzzled his leg, she reassured him, don't worry, you'll be fine after some rest and some food in your stomach. I believe this is sufficient for today. With Naruto in her left arm, she picked up the book under her arms and said, let's get you home. They walked back home, silently keeping watch over the Anbu as they left the park. Naruto interrupted halfway there, saying, hey, Chan? Yes, Naru-chan. She looked down at him and asked. Are you a ninja of any kind? She answered, somewhat surprised that he had asked. Well, I work as a medic. I work mostly in hospitals because I practice medical ninjutsu. He said, medical ninjutsu? What's that? Which caused Shizune to chuckle a little. Medical ninjutsu is a type of ninjutsu that is used to heal people when they get hurt. Like when people are sick and not feeling good. Exactly, I am okay at fighting but I prefer healing people, which is why I am Lady Tsunade's apprentice. She is the best medic nin in the whole world. The words, wow, he muttered to himself. Chan is really strong. She is one of the strongest in the village and is known all over the world as one of the strongest kunoichi there has ever been. He made her laugh once more when he asked, so does that mean you are really powerful too? I am nowhere near as powerful as your Chan, but I like to think that I am capable of looking after myself. I am a Chunin level ninja, so I know how to defend myself, which is the main thing. Naruto simply nodded and noticed that his eyes were getting heavy. They showed up outside his house and entered. He recognized one of the female voices he heard coming from the living room as Kushina's. Shizune passed the living room where Kushina and the other mothers were as she made her way to the stairs. Yoshino Nara and Sume Inuzuka were seated on one seat, while Makoto Uchiha and Inora Yamanaka were seated next to her. The twins were in a small crib directly in front of Kushina, and all of the mothers had small wrapped bundles in their arms. When the mothers looked up, they saw Shizune in the doorway, holding Naruto in her arms as if he were about to nod off. Kushina stood up and said, hello Shizune, while the other mothers greeted the teenage girl. When she turned to face Naruto, he waved hello. She said, did you have fun today Naru-chan? And he nodded wearily. Shizune surprised the women in the room by saying, he has been great today. He unlocked his chakra for the first time. They all grinned and congratulated him on his accomplishment. The mothers cooed at him as he said, thank you, half mumbling and not really listening. He nuzzled into Shizune as Kushina approached him and gave him a gentle forehead kiss. My little Naru-chan, already beginning his path to becoming a shinobi. I know your 2-san will be proud when he gets home. Makoto said, little Naru. Chan has gotten big since I last saw him," as she waved to Naruto while standing next to Kushina. "He is the same size as my little Itachi." When they noticed Naruto yawning, Kushina asked Shizune if he could put Naruto to bed for her, and Shizune promptly agreed. As she ascended the stairs and entered his room, she was struck by how orderly everything was, and she placed him on his bed, which had blue covers and a small shuriken on the front. She put his book on the little desk next to the bed and slipped out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. When Kushina said, "Thank you for helping him today, Shizune simply waved it away. "I was happy to help him. I love spending time with little Naru-chan." Kushina said, "In that case, might I ask you a favor?" Shizune nodded. "With the twins, I might not have much time for Naruto, and the same can be said with Minato with him helping rebuild the village. I was wondering, would it be possible for you to help Naru-chan with his chakra?" Although Shizune was somewhat surprised by the request, she could understand Kushina's perspective. She would have had little time for Naruto because she would have had to devote all of her attention to her two newborns. Additionally, Minato's duties as Hokage and the current state of the village meant the same thing to Naruto. "Of course, Kushina-sama, I would love to help Naru-chan." "Thank you, Shizune," Kushina said before the two said their goodbyes. Shizune then left the house, and Kushina returned to the living room to continue talking with the other mothers. Shizune, who was sitting next to the young blonde, read a book on medical ninjutsu and watched Naruto, who was holding 5 leaves, when she asked, "How is the exercise coming along, Naru-chan?" At the moment, the young blonde was attempting to use only his chakra to balance the leaves on the tips of his fingers. Shizune had explained to him that it was a technique for developing chakra control. He sat on the ground and shakily balanced the 5 leaves on the tips of his fingers, saying, "It's coming along okay, Nae-chan. I think I almost got it." With a slight expression of admiration on her face, Shizune leaned in to get a closer look. Despite his youth and the size of his chakra for his age, Naruto's surprisingly high level of chakra control and rapid learning rate left her feeling a little astounded. He loved everything that had to do with ninjas and was keen to learn. Additionally, he was constantly asking questions, which Shizune recognized as a positive trait because asking questions and seeking assistance was the best way to learn, and Naruto had no trouble doing either. She had been teaching Naruto for nearly a year, primarily teaching him about the leaf and its clans, as well as more about chakra. In the past month, she had started teaching him control since Naruto now understood it well enough for a 6-year-old. "That's very good, Naru-chan. Your control is very good. Your parents would be very proud," she replied. He said, "I guess," with a half-smile that lacked the usual upbeat attitude he usually wore. Shizune had recognized one. She knew what was making him so depressed. She had observed that Kushina and Minato had been spending nearly all of their time with the twins and had made very little time for Naruto over the past few months. Although the twins appeared nearly identical, Mito's deep-looking whisker marks on his cheeks allowed them to be distinguished from one another. The twins' first birthday was celebrated a few weeks ago, and their parents made a big deal out of it because they wanted it to be a memorable occasion. Naruto's birthday, which was a low-key event, had only been a week prior, as he saw Hiruzen, Tsunade, and even Jiraiya and Kakashi, who were constantly on missions. He naturally received gifts and cake. Even though it was Naruto's birthday, Shizune had observed that Kushina and Minato had mostly focused on Mito and Eiji, which, she had to admit, did not particularly impress her. She was aware that the twins required more care due to their advanced age, but she did not like that Naruto was feeling somewhat excluded. "Let's take a break, Naru-chan. You have done very well today. I think you have earned yourself a little treat for today." The word, treat, seemed to lighten Naruto's face, causing the leaves to fall from the tips of his fingers and land on the ground. Naruto nodded his head quickly in agreement as she said, "Since it's pretty warm today, we'll take this stuff home first and then how about we get some ice cream? Does that sound good?" She grasped his hand and they strolled in the direction of Naruto's residence. As they traveled to Naruto's house, they had a brief conversation during which Naruto again questioned Shizune about her status as a medic.nin. He had been asking her a lot of questions about her motivations for wanting to be a medic.nin and their skills ever since she told him she was one. She was a little surprised that Naruto might be interested in learning medical ninjutsu, but she would also be thrilled if he did. He had demonstrated at 6 that he had fairly good control and could be among the best at chakra control if he was focused. Although she liked the idea of Naruto being a medic.nin, that was not how she saw him. However, it didn't hurt to demonstrate some medical ninjutsu to him later on. "I want to make sure little Naru Chan is prepared for the life of a shinobi as best as I can. Since the village had practically fallen in love with Naruto from the moment he was born, some of the shinobi and civilians they passed waved to the two and greeted them warmly. They noticed Kushina just leaving the house with the twins strapped into a stroller as they got closer to the Uzumaki Namikaze residence. Mito had a dummy in her mouth, and Eiji was sound asleep. With a cheerful expression, Naruto called out, "Hi Chan," and approached his mother, causing Kushina to turn to face him and smile. As she made sure the twins were securely buckled up and that the stroller had everything she needed, she said, "Hello Naru-chan. How was our study session, Shizune?" "It's going great. I can balance 5 leaves on my fingers now," she said. "That's great Naru-chan," without raising her gaze from the stroller. He frowned slightly as he asked, "So where are you going?" She patted his head and smiled slightly as she said, "I'm taking the twins for a walk around the market and then we are visiting your father at the office." He began, "Maybe I can," but realized Kushina had already started to leave. He bid them both farewell and departed the house. He concluded by glancing at the ground and letting out a small sigh, "Go with you." In the meantime, Shizune was frowning. It seemed as though she had already considered it. Despite initially focusing on Naruto, Kushina's focus soon returned to the twins. "You okay Naru-chan?" she inquired, a little alarmed. With another half smile, he said, I'm fine Chan. Chan is just busy again and I understand." He hurried inside to store his equipment before making a hasty return. She shook her head and wiped the frown from her face before taking Naruto's hand once more and heading into the middle of the village to grab some ice cream. After 20 minutes, Naruto had an orange ice cone and Shizune was licking a mint chocolate chip ice cone as they left the ice cream shop. He was eating it up pretty fast. When she noticed that Naruto had ice cream on the tip of his nose, she tried not to laugh and reprimanded him, saying, "Slow down Naru-chan or you will give yourself brain freeze." After wiping his nose with the end of her sleeve, she discovered that he was grinning at her with a big, silly smile and had orange ice cream all over his cheeks. As she wiped the remainder of his face and gave him a gentle tickle, she remarked, "You are so messy at eating ice cream Naru-chan." He said, "No Chan or I will drop my ice cream," which fortunately caused her to stop. After a few minutes of walking, Shizune tapped Naruto's shoulder, attracting his attention. The two then settled down on a little bench to simply enjoy the sun and observe the passing people. She pointed to a Chunin shinobi with a bandana around his head and a senbon in his mouth, saying, "Naru-chan, tell me what Genma is feeling at the moment." Before he spoke, he hummed, while concentrating on the Chunin as he passed. He feels a little bored but a little lazy at the same time. Like he does not know what to do. She thought, sounds like Genma, and then she gestured to a member of the Inuzuka clan who was walking next to them with their ninja hounds. Shizune nodded in agreement, thinking that Inuzuka men were generally a little too self-assured. Naruto continued, "He feels happy and excited and maybe a little bit too cocky as well." Shizune had thought it was a great way for Naruto to get used to his sensor abilities, even though what they were doing might be considered a bit rude to some. Additionally, he was able to familiarize himself with the people in the village by sensing their energies. In this manner, as he grew older, it would be easier for him to determine who lived in Konoha and who did not, as well as whether they had good or bad intentions for their home. She made him smile by saying, "That's very good Naru-chan. You are getting better with those sensor abilities of yours." However, as he did, he sensed a strong, familiar signature approaching them from behind. He glanced behind them, which made Shizune follow suit, but he smiled when he recognized the person. "Hey Asuma-san," he said, licking his ice cream and waving to the young Jonin. He nodded to her and took a drag from his cigarette before saying, "Hey Naruto, hey Shizune." "Hello Asuma-san. Just getting back from a mission?" she inquired, noticing that he appeared somewhat worn out. He gave a head nod. "Yeah, just a few minutes ago actually. Guy is giving the mission report to the Hokage." Shizune nodded, but he felt sorry for Asuma. The man was a bit too much and overbearing, even though she liked Guy and he was a good friend. Asuma raised an eyebrow in response to Naruto's gentle reprimand. "Asuma-san, you know you should not smoke. Nay. Chan says it bad for your health." Shizune giggled a little into her hand. "True, but I summon a bit of chakra around my lungs so that it does not do as much damage. Plus I am as healthy as a horse." With utter innocence in his voice, he questioned, "Yeah but nay. Chan says if a horse has to be put down when it breaks its legs, does that mean you will have to put down when they make your lungs go bad? While Shizune was laughing uncontrollably, Asuma gazed at Naruto with a hint of incredulity. In an attempt to regain self-control, she said, "You have to admit, Asuma, he has got you there." In an attempt to escape this embarrassing circumstance of being outwitted by a 6-year-old, Asuma muttered something under his breath before shaking his head. "Anyway, I am about to head home and back to the Sarutobi Manor. If you two are done with your session today, why don't you come along? My pops should be there and I am sure he would like to see Naruto," he suggested. The idea of seeing his Gigi made Naruto happy, and he gave Shizune a beseeching glance. Using a puppy dog expression, he said, "Can we Chan, please?" Despite her desire to give him a hug, she was able to maintain her composure. She added to Naruto's smile by saying, "Sure, Naruto, I don't see why not. Plus, who knows, maybe your Gigi will have some shinobi wisdom to give you." Shizune and Naruto now trailed behind Asuma as he started to head back home, saying, "If there is anything, my dad has its wisdom by the shed loads." Asuma described his mission, which was to destroy a bandit encampment that had been set up 2 days outside the village and was terrorizing a nearby village, as they made their way to the Sarutobi Manor. Since Naruto was still a child and the two older teens did not want to expose him to the killing aspect of a shinobi duty until he was a little older, they made sure he did not hear any of the graphic parts even though Naruto tried to listen. They reached a huge manor house that was 3 stories high and extremely wide, with new flower beds adorning the exterior. After they had walked and removed their sandals, Asuma exclaimed, "Yo, Dad, I'm back and we got guests." They recognized Sarutobi's voice and started to move in its direction when they heard, "I'm in the dining room." They entered the dining room of the house and saw Sarutobi sitting on a cushion at the low table, writing elegant-looking giant kanji on paper, brushes, and ink that were spread out in front of him. "Gigi!" Naruto yelled as he charged at Sarutobi. The former Hokage noticed Naruto and gave the young blonde a grandfatherly grin. The blonde was hugged and placed on the cushion next to him. "Naruto-kun, this is a nice surprise," he said. "And Shizune. Chan, it's nice to see you again." She bowed slightly and said, "Hello Sarutobi-sama," before sitting down next to Naruto. As he finished the smoke in his mouth, Sarutobi turned to face his son standing in the doorway and asked, "How did the mission go, Asuma?" Hiruzen nodded to his son and watched him leave before turning to Naruto. "It went well, but I am feeling a little tired, so I'm going to head to bed to get some rest." "So Naruto-kun, it's nice to have you over today. If I had known, I would have had some tea and sweets ready," he replied. "That's okay, Gigi. Chan said I did good today in my studies, so we went to get ice cream." "And how are your studies going? I'm sure your parents are very pleased to see you on your way to becoming a great shinobi." Hiruzen was a little concerned when he saw the little flash of sadness in Naruto's eyes, but he still half smiled as he had earlier. He glanced at Shizune, who simply gave him a "tell you later" expression. He exclaimed, feeling pleased with himself, "I can already balance 5 leaves on one hand now. Chan taught me the leaf balancing exercise for my chakra control." "Well, that's very good, Naruto-kun. You are well on your way to becoming a great shinobi. Everybody starts at the bottom, and I am glad that you know that and are not trying anything that is currently out of your reach," he said. "You want to see?" And Hiruzen nodded, saying he would. Leaping from his chair, Naruto unlocked a door leading to the enormous training area and garden behind the manor house. Sarutobi turned to face Shizune as he left, and Shizune let out a small sigh. With a hint of sadness, she said, "You saw it too, didn't you? Why did he look a little sad when I mentioned Kushina and Minato? Everything is okay at home, is it not?" he inquired. "Everything is fine from what I can see, but I think Naruto is having a hard time due to the twins," she stated. Sarutobi asked her to clarify her meaning. "I can't help but notice that over the last couple of months Kushina, Sama and Minato, Sama's attention had been fixed mainly on the twins lately, and they seem to be spending most of their free time with them. I think Naruto has been feeling a little left out due to the lack of attention they have been giving him lately. Also, when he asks them to help him with his session or just to play a little they are normally busy." Hiruzen proposed, "Well, something like this was always going to happen. After all, with the twins being so young, it is only natural that their attention to be focused more on them. Oh, I know, and I am probably just looking into it too much, but at Naruto's birthday a few weeks ago, I noticed that their attention was again mainly focused on the twins and not on Naruto. Don't you think that is a little odd?" she said with a slight sigh. I understand what you mean, Shizune, but unfortunately sometimes these things are to be expected with having more than one child. Plus, since Mito is a Jinchuriki, there is always that small chance that something may happen with the seal. They're probably just being cautious. Now it was Shizune who let out a small sigh. She shook her head and said, "Yeah, I guess you were right. I am sure it is just temporary." She opened her mouth to speak, but Naruto interrupted them when he returned. But when she saw Tsunade appear behind Naruto, she was a little taken aback. As Hiruzen welcomed his former pupil, she questioned, "Lady Tsunade, what are you doing here?" She hugged Naruto from behind and made him smile up at her. "I thought I would visit Sensei while I had some time away from the hospital. It's an added bonus that I get to see little Naru-chan. I have not seen him since his birthday," she said. As they watched Naruto demonstrate his ability to perform the leaf exercise, they were all seated around the table. Shizune gave him a pat on the back as Sarutobi and Tsunade applauded his success. Naruto concentrated on the items on the table while Shizune approached to talk to Tsunade. As Naruto examined the tools on the table and the paper with the kanji written on it, he questioned, "Gigi, what are all the scribbles and kanjis for?" He appeared somewhat intrigued by them. He took a brush with a bit of ink on the end and made the kanji for fire on one of the pieces of paper. "Ah well, this is my calligraphy equipment Naruto.kun. It helps with keeping my writing abilities neat and readable. Plus it is a practice that is great for practicing to write fa, injutsu seals," he explained. Naruto observed with curiosity. "Fu. Fa, injutsu?" he asked out loud, his face in a contemplative pose. As Shizune laughed into her sleeve at his description, he asked Sarutobi, "Is that the one where you make things go poof and put them in another object?" Sarutobi ruffled his hair and laughed a little too. "Yes, that is one way to describe it Naruto.kun. It's also a type of shinobi practice your 2.san and Ka-chan are masters as. When it comes to fa, injutsu your parents are the best there is." His eyes were a little wide as he said, "Really?" And Hiruzen nodded. "Are you good at fa, injutsu too, Gigi?" Sarutobi pondered and tapped his chin. He said, "Well, I guess I'm not bad. Do you know how the art of sealing works, Naru-chan?" But Naruto shook his head. Shizune listened to the description as Sarutobi went on to explain. "Well, fa, injutsu is a type of jutsu that seal objects, living beings, chakra, along with a wide variety of other things within another object. Fa, injutsu can also be used to unseal objects either from within something or someone." He added, "That you are already aware of," and Naruto nodded, allowing him to go on. "Well, with fa, injutsu there are 10 levels on sealing, with level 1 being for beginners and then level 10 being for masters. Your Ka-chan and 2.san are both level 10 fa, injutsu masters and are most likely the only level 10 fa, injutsu masters in the world. Jiraiya meanwhile is a level 8, Tsunade 7 while Kakashi is a level 6. Naruto said, "Whoa, that's so cool," and Sarutobi nodded. "So then what level are you at? It must be pretty high because you're so strong." "Ah well, while I am not as good at sealing like your parents or Jiraiya, I do know my way around seals and I can spot a great seal when I see one. My fa, injutsu skills are a level 7 like your Ba-chan." "Cool," he said, glancing at the apparatus before returning his attention to Sarutobi. He surprised the former Hokage by asking, "Could you teach me Gigi?" before nodding and grinning in response. "I can, however, before you learn about sealing you need to have a steady hand and be able to write and draw neatly and elegantly. That way the seal will be able to work. I can teach you calligraphy first as a first step," he said while nodding to Naruto. He gave Naruto a brush and a small palette of ink, placed a few large sheets of paper in front of him, and gave him instructions. He was aware that Naruto's handwriting was good for someone his age, but he also understood that practice was necessary to get the symbols exactly right because one mistake could spell disaster. As Naruto nodded and tipped his brush into one of the ink palettes, he said, "Okay, Naruto.kun. Let's start easy. I'll draw the kanji for fire that I did moments ago. I'll go slowly so you can follow the movement." As Sarutobi's brush moved smoothly across the paper, Naruto tried his hardest to follow the motion slowly and carefully. Shizune and Tsunade watched from the sidelines, curious to see when Naruto would start to show an interest in seals. Naruto's deep interest in the art of sealing was almost inevitable given his Uzumaki ancestry and his parents' backgrounds. Naruto licked his lips slightly and protruded his tongue to demonstrate how intently he was focused. Hiruzen put down his brush after completing the symbol and turned to face Naruto, who had just completed the final section, before making the final tiny brush motion. He put down his brush, just like Sarutobi. In order to check for any minor errors, Hiruzen narrowed his eyes and examined it. Then he grinned a few seconds later. He put the paper back on the table and remarked, "This is very good for a first try Naruto.kun," which made Naruto smile. Though next time try and make the bottom right leg of the kanji a little longer since the one on this is a little short. After giving it a serious nod, Naruto tried it once more. Hiruzen taught Naruto how to draw all the element symbols and had him write sentences as fast as he could while attempting to keep the writing and symbols as neat and beautiful as possible. The two spent a few hours practicing calligraphy. Naruto was performing admirably for his first attempt at calligraphy. Hiruzen had to concede. Only a few minor details needed to be adjusted when he first drew a new symbol. They all looked extremely professional after that, and Hiruzen was unable to find any flaws in them. He thought, "The Uzumaki blood runs strong in you Naruto.kun," and proceeded to show him the iron symbol. As they conversed quietly and observed Naruto working with Hiruzen, Tsunade told Shizune, "The little guy is doing well." She thought it was adorable how determined he appeared. Tsunade's eyebrows shot up in surprise as she said, "You know Naru-chan has been asking me a lot of questions about medic nins lately." Since few kids were actually aware of medic nins, Tsunade stated candidly, "Really? I did not think medic nins were something little Naru-chan would be interested in. You would be surprised. He is very curious about all the different types of shinobi there are and always asks me about the things I do as a medic.nin. So you think he could be a medic.nin one day?" No, I don't think Naruto would be a medic.nin. However, I do think he would be interested to learn some medical ninjutsu. Because she spent a lot of time at the hospital, Tsunade was not entirely aware of Naruto's abilities or strengths, so she asked, "You think he could?" He is very smart for his age and he always asks questions, which is a good thing. Plus for the amount of chakra he has for his age and having pretty good control over it, which he demonstrated earlier, I think Naruto learning some medical ninjutsu could be possible for him and be a big help to him. As she considered it, Tsunade tapped her fingers against her chin. Since many people took medical ninjutsu for granted, she did enjoy demonstrating its superiority. She developed her creation rebirth technique and discovered her superhuman strength thanks to medical ninjutsu. Additionally, I want to instruct Naru-chan. He will undoubtedly achieve great things because Kushina and Minato are his parents, and Naru-chan would get off to a great start if I could help him get ready for the life of a shinobi like Shizune already has. With Shizune grinning, she remarked, "I will consider it. Maybe teaching Naru-chan a little medical ninjutsu would not be a bad thing." Afterwards at the home of Uzumaki, Namikaze Naruto was seated in front of the coffee table on the living room floor. Shortly after he finished practicing calligraphy with his Jiji, Sarutobi took Naruto out and gave him a small set of calligraphy tools so he could practice at home. Sarutobi instructed him to ensure that he could quickly and effortlessly draw the kanji on the paper, so he chose to spend the remainder of the day doing just that. Nah, he heard from next to him, and he grinned when he saw Mito crawling in his direction. A few days after 2.san, who was both her and Eiji's first birthdays, they exchanged their first words. Naturally, Minato was overjoyed because Naruto's first word was Ka-chan. He said, "Hi Mito-chan," as his younger sister rolled around next to him after continuing to approach him. He asked, "Did you have a nice dinner?" after noticing that she had some bean and carrot mush on her face. He picked up a napkin, placed his younger sister on his lap, and wiped the mess from her face, causing her to flail her arms in protest. When he finished, he noticed that she was pointing to one of the brushes he was using while ogling what he was doing on the coffee table. As Minato entered with Kushina trailing behind him and Eiji in his arms, he said, "You want to go down at Mito," who simply responded with a delighted squeal. When Minato noticed his daughter on his oldest's lap and placed a brush in her right hand, he remarked, "So that's where you went Mito-chan. Went to see what your big brother was doing." Naruto and Mito slowly drew the kanji for water on the paper after Naruto dipped the brush in his ink and Mito's in his own. While Eiji, still in Minato's arm, had his arms outstretched, indicating he wanted to try as well, Mito giggling demonstrated how much she was enjoying it. Before noticing the calligraphy kit, Kushina and Minato were sitting on the couches behind the coffee table, watching Naruto and Mito interact. Minato inquired, "Naru-chan, where did you get this kit?" Naruto returned Minato's smile. "Jiji got it for me. We went to see Jiji today and he taught me calligraphy. He said it was good for practice for seals." Watching as Naruto released Mito's hand as she drew squiggles on the paper, Kushina questioned, "He is right, they're very important for someone who wants to learn seals. Does this mean you are wanting to learn Fa, Injutsu? Naruto saw the two equally proud smiles come to their faces as he nodded his head. He saw his father leave his chair and head upstairs, only to return a minute later holding a book. Here Naru-chan. If you want to learn seals, then take this and have Shizune or your Jiji read it with you. This is a beginner's guide to Fa, Injutsu that I wrote with Jiraiya. This will help you learn the basics in level 1 Fa, Injutsu. Did your Jiji tell you about the 10 levels? He asked with a nod. As Kushina watched Mito enjoy her squiggle drawings, she added, if you are anything like us Naruto, then you will fall in love with Fa, Injutsu. Most think it is a dead-end area of ninjutsu, but it can be very powerful and so helpful if used right. He thought his parents would agree when he said, thank you to Dot-san, Ka-chan, but can't you help me with learning sealing? Jiji and Shizune-chan said you both are the best with seals. However, both of his parents shook their heads, which disappointed him. Sorry Naru-chan, we just don't have the time to help you right now, maybe some other time, replied Kushina. Minato patted Naruto's head and remarked, but your Jiji can help you since I know he is quite well versed in seals. He will definitely be able to help you. Even though he was disappointed that they had declined, he tried to sound convincing by saying, oh that's okay. Maybe another time. He said, thank you Naru-chan, thank you for understanding, as Kushina picked up Mito, causing the girl to gurgle in disappointment as she was having fun with her squiggle time. After giving Naruto a forehead kiss, Kushina got to her feet. With a twin in each arm, she and Minato left the room and went upstairs, saying, come on, Miss Messy, let's get you nice and clean with a bath. Neither of the two heard Naruto start a new page and start drawing again as they were leaving. Just a short distance from the Sarutobi Manor, Naruto ran through a small forest, jumped over a log, and tried his best to jump and avoid any obstacles. He stopped and tried to catch his breath, huffing a little. For roughly half an hour, he had been running non-stop, which is remarkable for a 7-year-old. He pondered whether that was because of his Uzumaki ancestry, but he would consider that another day. A small pouch that contained some kunai and shuriken that Sarutobi had purchased for him a few months prior was strapped to the side of his pants. Sarutobi, Shizune, and Tsunade had been taken aback by how rapidly he was picking up the knowledge they were imparting to him since he began studying under them a little more than a year ago. The boy's handwriting had improved to the point where most people would assume it was written by an adult after only 3 months of learning calligraphy from Hiruzen. Hiruzen then started teaching him level 1 Juinjutsu, which Naruto naturally absorbed. Anything pertaining to seals immediately entered his mind and remained there. Sarutobi had been somewhat taken aback by Naruto's rapid acquisition of Fuinjutsu. At his age, he thought he understood seals more quickly than even his parents. The level 1 sealing taught Naruto how to create basic Fuinjutsu seals, such as storage seals using scrolls. Naruto only needed roughly 5 months to grasp the level 1 concept and learn how to create functional, high-quality storage seals. He started practicing level 2 Fuinjutsu by the time he was 7 years old, which was also a huge surprise. Naruto was put to the test by Sarutobi to see how fast he could use the tools in front of them to create a storage seal. Naturally, he was shocked once more when Naruto created one in less than 30 seconds. His parents were thrilled by his rapid mastery of them and were certain that he would become a master of Fuinjutsu in the future. His studies with Shizune, meanwhile, had progressed to the point where even his Chan Suande occasionally stopped by to check on him and offer small advice on particular subjects. He had to balance rocks on the tips of his fingers after mastering the leaf exercise because rocks were heavier and required more chakra to balance. His rapid completion of the exercise once again shocked everyone, proving to Tsunade that Shizune had been right about his chakra control and that she would definitely need to look into teaching him some medical ninjutsu in the future. He was doing so well for someone so young that even Asuma and Kurenai, who would watch him practice, were in awe. They knew that he had definitely inherited his mother's tenacity and his father's intelligence. He started to slow down and came to a stop. Jiji told me to stretches as well to make sure my body stays nimble and doesn't seize up, he thought. Since he had taken his Jiji's advice to take care of his body and that he would not get very far without maintaining a healthy diet and physical fitness, he performed some arm stretches and leg lunges. Upon observing a tall tree, he made the decision to start honing his kunai and shuriken throwing techniques because it was practically a prerequisite for becoming a shinobi. But before he could start practicing his target, he started to feel like someone was nearby. I decided to go look into the source of the signature because it seemed a little familiar. Even though he could sense it was quite strong, the signature felt youthful to him. It took him roughly 5 minutes of walking through the forest to find the person he was seeking. A boy who appeared to be around his age, dressed in a light blue top, gray pants, and shinobi sandals, was standing in a small clearing in the forest. His hair was raven, with a tiny ponytail starting at the back. However, what stood out the most were the prominent, protracted tear troughs beneath his eyes. He had a red and white fan symbol on the back of his shirt. As he observed what the boy was going to do, Naruto, a Uchiha, pondered. He saw 4 kunai materialize in his hands before flipping and leaping into the air. As he started to descend, he let go of the kunai and shot it in the direction of several targets strewn across the tiny clearing. When Naruto saw that they all struck the targets squarely in the middle, his eyes widened. Whoa, he is really good. The youthful Uchiha turned to face Naruto as he landed softly on his feet. Who is there? Come on out, he said softly, but in a somewhat menacing manner. Naruto emerged from his hiding place and moved into the Uchiha boy's line of sight. He said, "My apologies, Uchiha-san," with a slight bow. "I did not mean to spy. I was in the area and I felt your chakra and came to investigate. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. It is nice to meet you," he said while introducing himself. He returned the bow and said, "Namikaze-san, it's good to meet you too. My name is Itachi Uchiha." Naruto grinned while nodding. "How did you get all the kunai on the bulls? I am surprised someone my age was able to do such a thing. My 2-san and my clan taught me from a very young age, though a lot of it is self-study and a lot of practicing. I just taught myself until I could do it without blinking." "So you have been learning to be a ninja since you were young then?" "When I was 4 I began. Though my Ka-san was not happy about it, but my 2-san talked her into it, saying we Uchiha had to learn at a young age." As Itachi collected his kunai from the targets, Naruto gave a slight nod. The young boy saw Naruto's ninja pouch strapped to his side as he was doing this. With a note of interest in his voice, he inquired, "You are training to be a ninja too?" and observed Naruto nod his head quickly. "Yeah, I have been training since I was 5, but maybe not as much as you have though." Itachi nodded and tucked his kunais back into his tiny pouch, which was on the side of his pants like Naruto's. Naruto wanted to compare himself to someone his own age, so he asked, "What sort of stuff have you learned so far?" In response, Itachi said, "I have studied and practiced the Uchiha style of taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, and fire jutsu, as well as a little bit of genjutsu." He hoped to learn what Naruto had learned and share what he had learned thus far. Naruto thought, "Whoa, he has learned that much already," but he had also been taught that the Uchiha were one of the most powerful families in Konoha, with their strength being on par with that of the Senju clan. As the 2 7-year-olds returned to the middle of the clearing, Itachi said, "May I ask what you have learned since I have told you mine?" "Sure," said Naruto cheerfully. "I have learned 2 chakra control exercises, the leaf and the rock balancing exercises, while I also practice Fuinjutsu. Also my parents tell me I have a sensor ability." Itachi nodded, though he mentioned a sensor ability that intrigued him a little. He inquired, "What is your sensor ability?" However, Naruto shrugged. "I am not too sure. My Chan and Gigi tell me I can just feel people's chakra as well as what they are feeling like, if they are happy or if they are sad or angry. That sounds like a beneficial ability to have. Though who is your Chan? I was unaware that the Hokage and his wife had an older daughter. She is not really by Chan, but I just call her Chan since she is like one and she thinks of me as her little Autouto." He said, "Ah, I apologize for the error," and Naruto waved it away. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Itachi after giving him a close inspection. "You look familiar. Have we met before this?" Itachi gave a headshake. "Perhaps when we were babies, but not since then due to our mother's friendship, rivalry. My mother is Makoto Uchiha," he said, causing Naruto to look surprised. "Makoto Obasan. So that why you look familiar. I think I remember her saying your name before. And you have a little brother, right?" Itachi gave a nod. "My younger brother Sasuke. He is the same age as your siblings Mito and Eiji, I believe." The two sat down in the little clearing and started conversing slowly. Both of them responded with training when asked what their hobbies were, which was not surprising to either of them. However, they soon discovered that the other had a strong desire to defend their village and family, particularly their mothers and siblings. They would both be attending the academy at the same time because they were of the same age. Normally, they would have enrolled at age 6, but one of Minato's first actions as Hokage was to raise the age limit for becoming a shinobi because they were not at war and he wanted the village kids to have more of a childhood before they were involved in the shinobi world's operations. Since Naruto was his mother's favorite before the twins were born, it was obvious to everyone how much he loved her. Since his mother was one of the few people who wanted Itachi to have a typical childhood and would tend to his wounds if he ever overworked himself, Itachi felt a close bond with her. According to Itachi, his father, Fugaku Uchiha, was a highly militarized individual who valued power above all else. Though Itachi always believed it was only to give their clan more power, he made sure Itachi would become the best in the village since he had demonstrated such promise in the ninja arts at such a young age. In the meantime, Naruto explained how he felt so worthless after the Kyuubi after learning that his other was harmed and how he committed to strengthening himself to shield her, his 2-san, and his siblings from any more harm. However, Itachi was taken aback when Naruto revealed that he was the one teaching him Fuinjutsu and that the third Hokage was teaching him how to be a shinobi. Even so, he was aware that the Hokage and his spouse were regarded as the greatest Fuinjutsu practitioners. He questioned why it wasn't being taught. When he inquired, he saw that his new friend had shifted the conversation to something else. Additionally, Naruto watched with slightly wide eyes as Itachi used the fire-style fireball jutsu, which engulfed the area in a massive fireball, in response to his question about whether he could actually perform any elemental ninjutsu because he had heard that it was extremely difficult for someone of their age to accomplish such a feat. After what seemed like several hours of sitting, the sun started to slowly set, and the two boys realized they had better head home before their families became concerned. The two new friends headed home after bidding each other farewell and promising to try to get together again the following day. Nobody would have known at the time that two of Konoha's greatest legends would meet for the first time. Clan Compound Uchiha. After entering the clan compound and taking off his sandals, Itachi entered the kitchen. When he got inside, he saw his mother sitting around the table with Sasuke strapped into his high chair. She was trying to feed him his mushy peas, but judging by the little glare on his face, he didn't seem to want any. Makoto sighed when he said, "No," then grinned and turned to face her oldest. She said, "Hello Itachi. How was your day?" as little Sasuke joyfully gurgled at his big brother upon spotting him. He observed Sasuke attempting to get his attention and remarked, "It was fine Ka-san. I just practiced my shuriken jutsu today," while seated on the opposite side of the table. As Makoto observed the two interacting, he whispered, "Hello Sasuke, are you being a good boy for Ka-san?" Sasuke gurgled, "You I good," which caused Itachi to smile slightly and Makoto to laugh at her youngest son. In response, Sasuke simply swung his arms around. "Now why'd I get the nose while your big brother gets the smile?" she asked. When the 2-year-old boy displayed a look of disgust that suggested he did not want the apricots, he said, "Come on Sasuke. Be good for Ka-san, otherwise you will have to eat the mushy apricots," and he grinned to himself. Makoto made another attempt and pushed the spoon in front of Sasuke's mouth. This time, however, he took a large bite of the food and chewed on it while wearing a scrumptious expression. While feeding her youngest child, Itachi glanced around and noticed that his father, Fugaku, was once again absent. Inquiring as to the whereabouts of his father, he asked, "Where is 2-san Ka-san?" Makoto let out a sigh. She expressed her desire for her husband to spend more time at home by saying, "Your 2-san is at the Uchiha police force station along with Yashira. Apparently they will be pulling an all-nighter again." She thought a little bitterly, but then again when he is home all he does is focus on Itachi, because Fugaku was getting a little fixated on gaining more power for the clan, which regrettably focused on Itachi. Itachi muttered, "I see," as he observed his mother giggling at the amusing faces Sasuke was making and his younger brother contentedly munching on his foot. He said, "I made a friend today," while gazing out the window without noticing his mother's startled expression. "Really?" she inquired, unable to conceal her happiness given that Itachi had no friends outside of the clan. "May I ask who?" He said, "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," and he watched with mild amusement as his mother's face instantly lit up with joy as she clapped her hands together. "Ma. Sasuke asked, turning his head in bewilderment as he watched his mother suddenly become very happy. "Oh, that is wonderful Itachi-kun. I was wondering when the two of you would become friends. Oh, you will become just like me and Kushina, I just know it." He remarked, "I think I would like that Ka-san," while Makoto grinned at her oldest child. "I am going to go to my room. I feel a little tired." She kissed her son's forehead and said, "Okay, I will see you later Itachi-kun," genuinely delighted that he had made a friend. Itachi was accustomed to receiving affection from his mother, but he hardly ever demonstrated that it affected him in any way. However, for the moment, a tiny smile spread across the young Uchiha's face. He reached into one of the drawers by the door and took out several blank slips of small paper as he was leaving the room, out of sight of his mother. Itachi paused at a mirror hanging on the walls as he made his way through the deserted hallways of his clan compound. After doing so, he briefly closed his eyes before opening them once more. But this time, he saw a pair of red eyes with 2 tomo in each, rather than his onyx-colored eyes staring back at him. Alongside Naruto as Naruto entered his house, he called out, "Is anyone home?" and waited for a response. His mother called out to him, in the kitchen, "Naru-chan," to him. When he entered, he saw his mother by the stove, the twins sitting in high chairs, both of them staring up at the ceiling. However, they both waved their arms at him and giggled a little when they saw him. He gave them a wave in return. "Where is 2-san? Your 2-san will be home in a few minutes. He just had some last-minute work to finish. Go up and get washed for dinner," she said, keeping her gaze fixed on the stove. Naruto replied, "Yeah, okay Ka-chan," and left to go upstairs. When he turned around, he saw that his mother had left the stove and was now playing with the twins. Naruto felt a twinge of sadness in his chest, but he quickly recovered. He had pondered elemental ninjutsu on his way home. Although he was aware that he was not yet prepared for such a significant step, something inside of him was ignited when he witnessed his new friend Itachi use the fireball jutsu earlier that day. He was in awe of Itachi's academic progress and had made up his mind that he needed to catch up. He made the decision that the next time he saw Shizune and Sarutobi, which was in 2 days, he would need to intensify his training. He walked stealthily to his father's office and carefully turned the handle, deciding to wash up in a moment. As he entered his father's office, he glanced at the enormous bookcase. The bookshelf held a vast collection of different jutsu techniques that his parents had both learned and recorded. However, elemental ninjutsu was his primary focus. He recalled that his mother had the element of water, while he had the element of wind, which was uncommon in Konoha, according to what his father had once told him. His gaze paused on one of the shelves that read, "C-ranked water ninjutsu." He picked it up, turned to the first page, and stopped. Each page featured a jutsu name with a tiny containment seal underneath. After reading the first few pages, one caught his attention. He read out loud, "Water style. Water bullet technique," thinking that would be ideal. He pressed his hand against the seal and, thanks to his study of Fuinjutsu and his completion of level 1, a small scroll appeared on top of the page in a tiny puff of smoke. After putting the book back where it belonged and concealing the scroll beneath his shirt, he hurried out of the office and went to his own room. Since his parents didn't frequently check the books, he didn't think they would notice, and he planned to return the scroll shortly. After swiftly copying the contents of the scroll onto a blank scroll he kept in his room, he would return the original to its proper place. The following day, with his shinobi pouch strapped once more to the side of his pants and 2 scrolls on his left, Naruto continued on the path towards the open area in the forest where he had first met Itachi. One held his small set of tools for creating seals, which he used virtually daily. The contents of the water jutsu scroll he stole from his parents were copied into the other one. When his mother was feeling the twins and his father had gone to work, he returned the original to its proper place in the storing book. He believed that what his parents did not know did not harm him, even though he knew he might get into trouble if they ever found out. His thoughts were, "Plus it is not like 2-san or Ka-chan really spend time with me anymore," he reflected. He was somewhat envious of his younger brother and sister, even though he did not despise them and actually loved them both. His parents' primary focus was on them since they were born a little more than 2 years ago. Even if it was only briefly, he hoped Kushina and Minato would make time for him. He felt Itachi's energy signature as if it had been yesterday, and he knew the Uchiha was nearby as he shook his head of the pessimistic thoughts and continued on the path he had taken the day before. As he entered the tiny space, he noticed Itachi standing with his back to Naruto in the middle of the opening. Itachi turned around as he heard Naruto's footsteps approaching him. He gave Naruto a nod when he saw him. Naruto said, "Morning Itachi," with a smile, and Itachi nodded in return. Itachi was about to say something when he noticed the scroll strapped to Naruto's side. "So what were you going to work on today?" Naruto asked. Itachi looked curiously at the 2 scrolls and asked, "What are the scrolls for?" Naruto said, "Oh well," and started to scratch the back of his head out of mild nervousness. Then Itachi nodded his head. "This one contains my Fuinjutsu equipment since I was thinking of getting some practice in," he said. He knew how much Naruto would need to practice in order to achieve his goal of outperforming his parents in Fuinjutsu, which was one of the things Naruto had shared with him. He bit his lip and said, "And this other may be a water jutsu that I may have taken from my dad's office," while Itachi gave his friend a mildly amused glance. "So you stole it?" he inquired, raising an eyebrow. He could be strangely serious for a 7-year-old. Not stole, borrowed, but I did put it back. Then how is it strapped to the side of your pants pocket? He scratched his chin and said, I might have copied everything inside on a blank scroll, while Itachi shook his head. He suspected that spending time with Naruto would result in some intriguing circumstances down the road. Itachi shook his head, took 2 pieces of paper out of his pouch pocket, and gave one to Naruto, who took it and gave it a strange look. After examining it, Naruto questioned, what is this for? It was merely a little slip of paper, both sides of which were blank. Itachi questioned his new acquaintance, do you know what these are? Naruto stared at the blank piece of paper and said, I think so. I recognize it since I think my Jiji told me about them once but I forgot the name. They help tell you something about your chakra, right? Itachi gave a head nod. My 2-san called them chakra paper. They help us find out what our element affinity is. As Itachi nodded, he remarked, element affinity. So it tells us which of the element jutsus we can do and can be best at, right? That is how I understand it too, he said. I thought you might want to find out your element or elements since you showed interest in them the other day. Definitely. It's the main reason I took this water jutsu since I wanted to be able to do it too. Though how does the paper tell us? He asked as Itachi clarified. My 2-san said that it differs from each element. He said that if it burns it is fire, water then it gets soggy, earth it crumbles away, wind it splits into 2 pieces and then lightning if it crinkles. Naruto said, cool. So do you know what yours are? Because he was definitely interested in learning what element he was. A while back, he had asked his Jiji where he was, and he discovered that his Jiji was fire. He also discovered that his mother was water, and Minato was wind. It clarified why they kept so many water and wind jutsu techniques in reserve. Itachi nodded, and Naruto saw the young Uchiha pour some of his chakra into the paper, causing a slight blue glow to surround it. After observing the slip of paper with fascination, Naruto watched as he received his response. The slip of paper caught fire on one half, and water on the other half became slightly wet before it caught fire entirely. Instead, Itachi answered before Naruto's counsel did. My main element is fire, which is not surprising since my clan is known for our strong affinity to fire. However, I was surprised when I discovered I had a minor affinity for water, which is extremely rare for my clan. So is that why you could do the fire jutsu so easily? In a way. The fireball jutsu is a rite of passage for all Uchiha members, meaning everyone in my family had to learn it by the time they were my age, Itachi clarified as Naruto nodded. Itachi's clan sounded pretty cool, he had to admit. He also pondered whether his family or any other clan in Konoha had to undergo any sort of rite of passage. So cool. Man, I am so pumped I have to find out what mine is now, Naruto remarked, beaming at the sheet of paper he was holding. He squeezed the slip of paper in his paper tightly and closed his eyes. He made the paper glow a faint blue by pouting his chakra into it. Itachi waited to see the outcome as he stood directly in front of it. The two received their response when Naruto opened his eyes. However, neither had been fully ready for the response. The two were equally shaved in half by the paper's split in the middle. The paper completely crumbled away on the left side, but it got wet and mushy on the other slip. Both Naruto and Itachi simultaneously exclaimed, "Whoa," as they took in the brief display before them. Itachi said, "Amazing," not quite believing what he had just seen. Naruto examined the slips of paper in his hand and wondered, what exactly does that mean? He asked himself out loud, does this mean I have 3 elements? Unsure if he believed him after what had just transpired. Itachi finally wrapped his head around it and said, "It looks like that is what just happened. It is unexpected because my mother used to say that having even 2 affinities was extremely uncommon because it typically meant that a person had a bloodline. I didn't know your family had one, though. Well, I am aware that neither side of my family has that kind of bloodline. Strong life force, as well as naturally high stamina and chakra, are my Chan's strong points. That's what I believe it was. Anyway, what gave me 3, then?" "I'm not sure," Itachi remarked. "I suppose it was just one of those once-in-a-million events," and Naruto nodded. "Earth, water, and wind. If I ever get the hang of them, I can get really strong, but if I told them, what would they all think?" He bit his lip, thinking, plus, Chan and 2-san might discover that I took a jutsu from their library without asking. He reasoned that, then Jiji, Chan, and Chan might get angry that I am doing this without telling them, because he really didn't want Shizune, Tsunade, or worse, both of them, to beat his skull. He also dared not imagine what his mother would do, since she was known as the Red Hot Habanero for a reason, and even Naruto knew not to cross her when she was in one of her moods. He called, "Hey Itachi," to get the boy's attention. "Do you think we could keep this between us for the time being? Nobody is aware that I'm interested in elemental ninjutsu, and they would likely tell me that I'm not yet prepared. Could we perhaps keep this private for the time being?" After raising an eyebrow at the question, Itachi shrugged and nodded, indicating that it was not an issue. Naruto thanked him and the two began their training, with Naruto looking over the water scroll with renewed vitality and vigor while Itachi resumed practicing his shuriken jutsu. He was even more motivated to practice this jutsu and master it now that he was aware of his water element. Standing on the tiny platform, Minato had a view of the academy grounds and the new academy students, who were all standing in front of them with focused expressions. The parents stood in the back, witnessing this moment of pride that many of them had long been anticipating. "You all begin your path to becoming ninjas today in order to defend Konoha and the entire land of fire, but what does it mean to protect? Why should you defend this village and this nation? Today, you take the first steps toward becoming shinobi and protectors of Leaf Village. You will eventually have to answer that question for yourself, but don't take it lightly because being a ninja is a serious job. Your loved ones depend on you, as do your fellow soldiers in this village. Only when one has something they are prepared to defend to the death does one become strong. Make us all proud by moving forward with the day." The fourth Hokage gave them all a wave of embarrassment from all the applause they were giving him before abruptly vanishing in a yellow flash, to the loud applause of the new academy students and parents. A similar head of blonde hair watched his father vanish, staring down at the ground and letting out a small sigh. "Are you all right, Naruto?" Naruto simply nodded in response to his friend Itachi's question, who was standing next to him and had noticed him sigh when his father had flashed away. "Yes, I'm all right. I guess that was just wishful thinking, but I was hoping he would stay to wish us luck." As the teachers started calling out names to indicate which students would be in which class, Naruto looked over his shoulder and noticed many of the parents chatting merrily with one another. When he looked toward his Nei, Chan and Gigi, who were present, they waved at him, and Naruto waved back with a half smile. He turned to see Itachi's parents standing a short distance to the right of them, with Mikoto beside him, Sasuke holding onto the hem of her dress, and a small bundle wrapped in light pink blankets in her arms, while Fugaku, wearing his usual expressionless expression, was simply gazing up at the sky. 3 months ago, Mikoto gave birth to her daughter Ria Uchiha, who surprised the Uchiha clan. Especially Itachi, who never imagined he would have a sibling other than Sasuke. Naruto had never seen his best friend smile so broadly as he did when he told her about little Ria. He was feeling very depressed at the moment because, as he looked around the mass of parents, he had noticed that one particular redhead was missing from the ceremony. This time, it wasn't the twins or her job obligations that prevented his mother from attending his genin induction, but rather her decision to skip it. As with Mikoto, Kushina had received the greatest surprise of all when she learned that she, too, was expecting a child, and she was overjoyed, especially when she and Minato learned they were expecting a girl. Naruto was truly delighted to have a younger sibling, but it also meant that he would have to bid his parents farewell for the last time. There were no insane giant foxes attempting to demolish the village when little Mina Uzumaki was born 9 months later, this time in the Leaf Hospital. With the same skin tone, the same violet eyes, and little tufts of red hair on top of her head, everyone could tell after just one glance that she would grow up to be an exact replica of Kushina. When Naruto first held his youngest and newest sister in his arms, he was tired of the fact, but he soon fell in love with her, silently promising her that he would protect her and grow strong to protect her and the rest of their family, just as Itachi had done with Ria. When their baby sisters were born, his and Itachi's desire to train and become stronger reached a new level of intensity. Naruto heard the words, "Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze," and everyone watched as he approached the man who had just called him. The man was in his early 30s, had brown hair, and had eyes that were typical of Chunin uniforms. "I will be your teacher for the ensuing 4 years, Namikaze. Sama. Itomo Oba is who I am. Oba-sensei, it's good to meet you." With a slight bow and a courteous tone, Naruto said, "Please take care of me." Naruto lined up with some of the other students in his class, and when their sensei called Itachi, indicating that they would be in the same class, he grinned, glad to have a friend. After roughly 20 minutes, Shizune and Hiruzen bid Naruto farewell and good luck before departing, along with the parents. Naruto and Itachi sat in one of the middle rows, and they hurriedly took their seats after making their way through the academy to their classroom. A purple-haired girl joined them in the middle row and greeted them both shyly, to which they both cheerfully replied. Naruto looked around the room to see if anyone he recognized was there as they sat in their seats and listened to their new sensei go into further detail about the life of a shinobi and the speech Minato had given them earlier. The only other girl he recognized, besides Itachi, was a girl seated in the front. She had brown hair, slightly tanned skin, and red fang marks on each cheek. He noticed 3 small puppies cuddled up next to her, leaning on her leg while her hand scratched one of their heads. Itachi heard Naruto whisper, "An Inuzuka," and nodded. She is the Inuzuka clan's heiress and goes by Hana Inuzuka. As Naruto nodded, he remarked, "My Ka-san and hers are old friends back from their genin days. I think the same for mine." He kept scanning the room and noticed 2 more that caught his attention. With brown hair, arc eyes, and arms resting on the desk, there was a sickly-looking child who coughed every few minutes, had slightly pale skin, and looked as if a simple gust of wind could topple him. Wearing a dark shirt and a slightly tanned skirt, the girl next to him had purple hair tied up in a pineapple-shaped ponytail. She was playing with a kunai in her hands and appeared to be aiming it at the closest person she could find. After shaking his head, Naruto's thoughts strayed and he considered his present strength. Since level 2 was all about weight seals and the like, he and Hiruzen applied a few weight seals to him to help with his body conditioning and to improve his strength and stamina. Hiruzen no longer pretended to be surprised by his Injutsu, which had now advanced to level 3. He knew Naruto was a true prodigy in every aspect of the art. Though it took him a little while to fully grasp it, he had mastered the water jutsu he had borrowed from his parents' library. He then discovered that water jutsu simply fit him, and since his parents were so preoccupied with Kushina's pregnancy, neither of them noticed him making a few more trips to their library. He now knew 3 water jutsu, whereas Itachi had 3 fire jutsu. As he continued to train with Shizune, he was taken aback when Tsunade became involved and decided to teach him taijutsu, which was one of her specialties, since Hiruzen was teaching him Injutsu and Shizune was teaching him how to control his chakras. She had attempted to teach him the slug style of taijutsu, but she soon discovered that it simply did not suit his style. Instead, she started teaching him the senju style, which she was trained in because it was the taijutsu style of her clan, even though she did not use it frequently herself. Even though it wasn't ideal for him, he managed to make it work, and Tsunade had been tweaking the style in small ways to make it fit him. She even had Might Guy, the resident taijutsu expert from Konoha, come and examine Naruto's style. When Naruto demonstrated an aptitude for the Goken style, Guy and Tsunade decided to combine the 2 styles and create something entirely new. Guy had cried out how amazing it was that Naruto was training to become a great shinobi and cried out about some youth for no apparent reason. They didn't have a name yet, but Naruto knew it had to be something amazing, and he was picking up taijutsu fast as well, demonstrating once more that his hard work and prodigy status were already paying off. "Naruto, pay attention," Itachi said, jolting him back to consciousness with an elbow to the side. Naruto whispered back, right, sorry," while Itachi shook his head at his friend's tendency to let his thoughts wander. Naruto listened intently to his sensei and the topics he was covering with the class, noting that Shizune had already discussed some of them in their studies together. He shook his head and tried to block out his sensei's voice, thinking, "I don't think the academy is all it is cracked up to be." When the purple-haired girl next to Naruto noticed his lethargic demeanor and the expression on his face, she covered her mouth to contain her laughter. "Is there anything you would like to say to the class, young lady?" Their sensei, who appeared to dislike being interrupted, said this as all of the students' attention was drawn to the girl with the purple hair, who blushed slightly and twiddled her index fingers together. "No sir, sorry sensei. What's your name?" he asked, turning to face her. "A little," the girl stammered, "why? Yugo Uezuki." Before he started his lessons, he said, "Well then, Miss Uzuki, please try and keep any comments or noises to yourself." She nodded and fell silent as everyone in the class, with the exception of Naruto, who had switched his focus to Yugo, resumed listening to their sensei. "What caused you to laugh?" He heard her giggle from next to him, so he asked. "I was making fun of you," she said. "You made me laugh with your funny expression," and Naruto's eye popped up in surprise before he smiled inwardly. "You mean phrases such as these?" Before he started pulling several faces at Yugo, who was flushed and had to cover her mouth with her hands, he asked. Their sensei never noticed any of this, as Naruto made funny faces at Yugo, who appeared about to laugh out loud. Itachi, who was standing next to him, rolled his eyes while wearing a half-smile. Naruto had inherited more than just his eyes from his mother, and while he was quiet and serious most of the time, he had moments when a more playful personality took over. They were similar in that regard. Hana Inuzuka, who was in the front row, saw what he was doing and laughed into her hand, finding it hilarious. Although the sickly boy had to cough every few minutes, which attracted a lot of attention from their sensei, the other purple-haired girl and the sickly boy in the back row also laughed. Day's end, most of the kids went home to their parents after their first academy day so they could tell them about their wonderful first day and everything they had learned. Everyone was back in the same opening in the forest where Naruto and Itachi had been training, with the exception of a group of 6 kids, who had followed them after school to see what they were doing. Hana Inuzuka, Yugo Uzuki, Anko Mitarashi, and Hayate Gecko were the 4. When the 4 tried to make friends with Naruto and Itachi, the 2 boys kept avoiding them and separating from everyone else. They nearly spoke to them during lunch, but the academy school bell rang, and by the time they turned around, the 2 boys had already vanished. Yugo told the sick boy, Hayate-kun, "Stop coughing or they will know we are here." The boy nodded. Trying to control his cough, he said, "My apologies, Yugo-san. The pollen from the plants is making it difficult to breathe." Anko smiled as she observed them, and Hana whispered somewhat harshly, "Shush, stop talking you two or our cover will be blown." I'm curious about their strength. Before dozing off in front of them, she licked her lips a little and said, "I bet they would make a good fight." Wait, where did the Uchiha go? As they all turned to face each other, they saw that Itachi had really vanished and that Naruto was now motionless and staring in the direction of their hiding place. "You 4 are free to leave at this time." The 4 freeze in place as Naruto yelled, "We know you have been following us since we left the academy." They jumped out of their skins when they heard a voice behind them say, "We would appreciate it if you could just come on out." They turned to see Itachi looking amused. "You have to come out and say that you would have liked to watch us or train with us," Naruto added. There was no need to just hide. He then materialized before them. The 4 children blushed and appeared somewhat embarrassed. The 3 puppies padded toward Naruto after sniffing the air from Hana's side. With a smile on his face, Naruto knelt down and started petting the 3 pups, who appeared to enjoy the attention as they wiggled their tails and dangled their tongues out of their mouths. As she approached them, Hana remarked, "Whoa, that was quick. I have only had them for about 6 months, and they have never come to me so quickly before. They must genuinely like you." She introduced them, saying, "They are known as the 3 Haramaru brothers." Following a few minutes of conversation during which Anko inquired about their ability to train with the 6, Naruto and Itachi shrugged and assured them that everything was okay. Anko noticed that Naruto and Itachi were facing opposite directions from one another as the 4 of them reviewed the material from that day. In an instant, the 2 rushed forward to confront one another and started kicking and punching each other. The 4 recognized Itachi's fighting style as belonging to the Uchiha clan, while Naruto's style appeared to be the Senju style, though some parts of it were off, and it looked like another form that they did not recognize. They remained that way for a few minutes as each attempted to hit the other. They also questioned why, given Kushina's reputation for having strong taijutsu skills, Naruto was not using the Uzumaki style that his mother was familiar with. After both of them succeeded in punching the other's cheek, the 2 were pushed back and staggered. The 2 swiftly concentrated their chakra and performed the required hand seals after waking up from their mild daze. Itachi yelled, "Fire-style fireball jutsu," and extinguished a massive fireball that was headed for Naruto. Naruto exclaimed, "Water-style water bullet jutsu," as clumps of water erupted from his mouth. The toe jutsu collided in the center, creating steam where the water met the fire and a tiny blast from the impact. The 4 were trying to figure out where the 2 boys were, but the steam blocked their view for a few minutes, and they knew they were fighting based on the sounds they could hear. As Yugo observed their sparring match, she remarked, "They are incredible. At this age, I didn't think elemental ninjutsu was possible." Hayate coughed into his hand once more, causing Yugo to pat him on the back. "I mean, they are so hard to do and the chakra control has to be so precise," he said. "Wow, these 2 are really nice. If they are already at this level, we really need to catch up with them," Hana stated, and Yugo and Hayate nodded before realizing Anko was gone. "Where is Anko-san?" Glancing around, Hayate inquired. When a voice called out from inside the steam cloud, striking shadow snakes, Naruto and Itachi emerged from one side of the cloud, both of them appearing slightly taken aback by the interruption. They were all taken aback when the steam mist vanished and Anko appeared in the center, both of them striking the ground where Naruto and Itachi were formerly standing with what appeared to be 2 rather large green snakes emerging from her sleeves. "Snakes?" They all pondered as Naruto and Itachi squinted at the purple-haired girl and the snakes. They were suddenly wary of her because of the snake jutsu she used. Hiruzen and Tsunade had told Naruto about the man, and Itachi's parents had told him that he was one of the worst traitors the world had ever seen, and that he was the only person both of them knew who had snake-related ties and could use snake-like jutsu. The question that was now on both of the boys' minds was, how can she do snake techniques? In the meantime, Anko smiled at the shocked expressions on the faces of Hana, Yugo, and Hayate, as well as the tired and contemplative expressions on the faces of Naruto and Itachi. You guys didn't think you were the only toe with tricks up your sleeve, did you? After a month after some time had passed since the 6 academy students first met, they became fast friends and an unbreakable unit. Since their first training session, the 6 have gotten together whenever possible to spar and support one another's strength development. After just a few days, the academy realized that Naruto and Itachi were prodigies, primarily when they were taught the henge technique and were able to master it by the end of the day, leaving the teachers perplexed. Itachi was rapidly establishing himself as the Uchiha clan's prodigy, and while Fugaku and Mikoto were incredibly proud of their son, Naruto was equally proud of his family, and he was even taken aback when Kushina and Minato embraced him tightly upon learning of it. Even though the brief celebration was short-lived, Naruto relished the time when his parents' full attention was on him. Although Tsunade, Hiruzen, and Shizune were in awe of it, it was not as shocking because they had been training him prior to the academy. Despite Yugo and Hana's efforts to challenge her, Anko was swiftly rising to the top of the group of girls. Despite being strong for her age, Anko was not quite as strong as Naruto and Itachi, but she made sure to make them perspire as much as she could during their sparring sessions. "Are you certain you don't mind taking me, Gigi?" As they made their way through the market toward a shinobi store that Hiruzen had told him about and had been wanting to take him to for a while, Naruto asked him. "Naturally, Naruto-kun, now that you're in the academy, it's time to acquire the appropriate shinobi gear, including clothes and weapons." Hiruzen looked down at his surrogate grandson. "Even though it's the person who makes the shinobi, it is essential that you have the correct equipment with you and that you are wearing appropriate clothing. So, there would definitely be an orange jumpsuit available then?" Pointing to an orange get-up in a storefront window, Naruto said. Hiruzen trembled at the idea of someone wearing that color. "Unless you want to be a walking target, then yes, Naruto, it is definitely out." A Jonin with orange leg warmers and tight green spandexes sneezed somewhere in Konoha. Naruto started to check his pockets and said, "But I didn't bring enough money, Gigi," expressing uncertainty about his ability to pay. "This week, Chan and 2.san neglected to give me my pocket money." Naruto-kun, don't worry about money. He patted the boy on the shoulder and said, "I'll buy you everything you need." He was the one who fought in the first Shinobi War, was chosen by Tobamura Senju to be his successor, and led the Leaf to victory in the second and third Shinobi Wars. Naruto wanted to argue, but he knew his Gigi would only tell him that a grandfather could spoil his grandson whenever he wanted. Moreover, his Gigi was a former Kage, so if anyone knew what to wear, it was him. "All right, Gigi," Sarutobi smiled back at Naruto's response, pleased that Hiruzen continued to spend time with him and train him despite having a real grandson of his own. They named him after the village because they knew he would grow up to be a great shinobi, and Konohamaru Sarutobi was born a month before his only daughter, little Mina, was born to Hikaru Sarutobi, his eldest child. They eventually came to a stop at a moderately sized store on the outskirts of the market's shinobi district after 10 more minutes of walking. "Since I was a young man, Naruto-kun, I have been visiting this store. In my opinion, this store is the best place to purchase shinobi supplies." While guiding Naruto inside, he uttered those words. Naruto noticed locking seals on the door hinges as soon as they entered, and he thought, to stop burglars. "Toronto." Just as Sarutobi yelled, a man with brown hair and civilian clothes in his mid-30s emerged from behind the counter. "Hey, Hiruzen, nice to see you. How may I assist you?" he asked, noticing Naruto at his side. "And the son of Kushina and Minato, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, must be this person. I wanted to know when you would bring him here." Now that Naruto-kun is in the academy, I believed it was time to get him his proper shinobi gear. "Well, I'm honored that you visited my shop. Even after my father passed the store on to me, I'm happy that the village's shinobi still frequented this location. Look, 2.san. A squeaky voice called, making them look over to see a little brown-haired girl with her hair tied in 2 buns wearing a little pink top and shorts with a wooden kunai in her hands. "I can finally throw it on the target right," she stated with a chuckle. He said, "That is great, sweetie. Hiruzen, you remember my daughter 1010? as Naruto and Hiruzen exchanged a brief greeting as the girl approached her father, who picked her up and placed her on the counter. Naruto surveyed the store and saw that it was easy to understand why his Gigi and the shinobi in the village both favored it. Weapons of all kinds were stored in safe racks and on the walls. A variety of weapons, including sai, nunchaku, axes, and swords. There were rows and rows of clothing on the opposite side, ranging in color from children his age to adults Akamichi's size. The brightest colors were a purple and red top and skirt, but most were dark. As Hiruzen chatted with Toranto and swooned over Lil Tenten, he started to browse the clothing selection and find something that fit him. "This is all so cool," he said. 10 minutes later, he wore 5 sets of black and gray sandals and pants, and 5 black tops with a blue stripe running through the middle. He then proceeded to use his shuriken and kunai. His current ones were ones that Minato had previously used and had given to Naruto because they were still in excellent shape. Hiruzen came over and started assisting him. He gave Naruto's chosen outfits a nod of approval. A kunai and shuriken made of chakra metal. "Good eye, Naruto." Naruto asked, not quite remembering what it was. "Chakra metal." As Naruto gawked at it, he explained, "It is metal that allows chakra to run through it, so that it makes the attack stronger than just using it normally." He pondered why more ninjas did not use it, but then he remembered that his mother had used a sword and that it had glowed blue when he had witnessed her use it prior to the birth of the twins. It must have been chakra metal, he thought. After placing them in the basket, they proceeded to browse the narrow aisles. They also reached a small area with injutsu inks and scrolls. Sealing scrolls were also for sale. Naruto was unaware that sealing scrolls and other sealing-related supplies could be sold. He committed that knowledge to memory for later use. At last, Naruto and Hiruzen inspected the various weapons they had placed on exhibit. Hiruzen picked up a katana, examined it, and gave it to Naruto, saying, "You know, Naruto, your mother is very powerful when it comes to the art of a sword. She probably could fight the 7 swordsmen equally and come out on top if she wanted to. Maybe you might follow in her footsteps?" In his right hand, Naruto grasped the katana. He swung it slightly through the air while holding it in his hand. After examining it, he had to concede that the katana was exquisite, and he was aware that mastering the art of wielding a sword was a key component of being a shinobi. He was aware of Kiri, who possessed the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist, 7 of the greatest swordsmen in existence. According to what he had been told, Kumo learned an academy style of kenjutsu while he was there and typically carried a sword. And then there was Iron Country, where they trained heavily in kenjutsu and had samurai rather than shinobi. Hiruzen saw his face crease into a frown. "What's the matter, Naruto-kun?" As Hiruzen and Toranto gaped in shock, he remarked, "I'm not too sure, Gigi. It is just the sword does not feel right in my hands." For the next 10 minutes, Naruto tried handling all of Toranto's swords, but none of them felt right in his hands. He claimed that they simply felt strange. Interesting, they both thought. Hiruzen tapped his chin and remarked, "This is an interesting development." Naruto simply nodded his head when asked, "Are you sure wielding a sword is something you want, Naruto?" "I want to be a great kenjutsu user and to one day surpass my Chan." Toranto listened and expressed his thoughts. "When my father owned this store, he used to tell me that swords were like an arm's extension and that they had a life of their own. He asserted that the sword chooses the wielder rather than the other way around." As Hiruzen and Naruto considered it, he suggested, "Perhaps the reason you don't connect with the swords is because the sword you are supposed to wield has not been made yet." Little Ten, meanwhile, simply listened and observed from the top of the counter. "Are you going to make the sword?" Toranto shook his head as Hiruzen asked. "I have a trader from Iron Country who comes here a couple times a year, but not me. He did some business with my father and worked for him. I can get in touch with him and request that a blacksmith make Naruto a sword." Hiruzen gave him a startled look as he said, "The man he deals with, believe it or not, is Muramasa Sengo." "Who is that, Gigi?" Naruto inquired. "Naruto-kun, Muramasa Sengo is among the greatest blacksmiths of our time. Many people want to own one of his swords because his katanas and other weapons are artistic creations." Naruto looked surprised when Toranto said, "He is also the man who built your mother's katana." He had only seen his mother's katana a few times because she always kept it in a storage seal on her wrist, but it was a very beautiful katana, known as the Kitetsu. One of the reasons he wanted to master kenjutsu and eventually outdo her because she was the best in Konoha. "Is it possible for you to persuade Muramasa Sengo to create a sword for Naruto?" Toranto nodded as Hiruzen asked. "He was my father's close friend and was always willing to lend a hand. He treated me with the same decency." I am confident that he will say yes because he is making a top-notch katana for a young man who aspires to be a great kenjutsu practitioner and uses its power to defend those who are important to him. The boy grinned broadly as he said, Naruto, expect one of the best katanas you will ever see to become yours. It might take a month or two. As they all nodded and paid for the equipment that was already in their basket, he said, we can sort out payment later. So I would like everyone to say congratulations to your classmates Itachi Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze and Anko Mitsubishi for passing the academy in just 1 year. Wish them all the best as they take their first major step as shinobi of the leaf. As their classmates applauded them and congratulated them on their good work, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko stood at the front of their class grinning. Despite only being 9, the three were more than prepared to become genin after a year at the academy, according to the council and the academy's teachers. It would be a waste of their abilities to keep the three in the academy since they all easily outperformed the other students in the class. Yugo, Hayate, and Hana gave their friends the loudest applause and vowed to try their hardest to catch up to the trio by the following year. Naruto said, now the real path of being a shinobi begins, and Anko smiled broadly as Itachi nodded as he usually did. It's about time too. I was beginning to get so bored here that I thought my head was going to roll off my shoulders from the boredom. I am honored to have the three of you in my class for the little time that you were here. Good luck in your shinobi careers. I know that all three of you are going to go far, the sensei who taught them said. Thank you sensei, they both said simultaneously. Your new Jonin sensei has told me that you will meet them on the roof and that they will be there in 10 minutes time. Before leaving the classroom, the three nodded and waved to their three friends, who followed suit. They gave each other a nod as they left the room, then made the ram seal with their hands and shunshine to the roof. During one of their breaks from Fuinjutsu, Naruto asked Hiruzen to teach him a jutsu, and Hiruzen taught them that move. After giving it some thought, he concluded that Naruto was prepared to master the body flicker technique. The blonde boy taught it to Naruto first, and then to the others. While Itachi and Anko mastered it in a matter of days, Hana, Hayate, and Yugo struggled and were still learning it. When they reached the roof, the three of them sat on the floor together. Anko whirled a kunai around her index finger, Itachi gazed at the clouds, and Naruto read a book about Fuinjutsu. Anko asked the two boys, so any idea who we have as our sensei? They both gave a headshake. The fact that Naruto said, no idea but I hope they are strong whoever they are. I can't wait to get some more training done, demonstrated his extreme training zeal. Fortunately, it wasn't on par with a certain Jonin who wore spandex. Whoever they are, I am sure they are capable. Hokage Sama would not have put us with someone who could not handle the task. Before placing the sword in his lap, Naruto held it in his right hand with a slightly tight grip as they nodded. The katana he had been waiting for finally arrived after 2 months of Torino at the shinobi store placing the order. And he was unable to contain his admiration for its beauty and uniqueness when he first saw it. According to Torino, it must have been among Masamune's best pieces. To his surprise, the blade's hand guard had flower-like edges, and the metal was 27 inches long and black with a noticeable red edge. The sheath was plain black with 2 red Uzumaki spirals running up the side, and the handle was dark purple. Naruto initially observed that it weighed slightly more than other swords, but he was informed that this was because the blade's metal was denser and harder than other blades, giving it greater physical strength. Although he was aware that it would take some time to adjust, he was confident that the weight of the blade would not be an issue because his weight seal was now up to 30 pounds on each limb. He, Hiruzen, Shizune, and Tsunade had all remarked that they had never seen a blade quite like it when they first received it, and they were all in awe of how graceful yet strong it appeared. He knew that this blade would become famous one day, so he gave it a name after receiving it. The Shisui the others concurred that the name was a perfect fit for the blade. He wanted to always have the Shisui on him, so he made a storage seal on his wrist that looked like the one his mother had on hers. To his annoyance, Kushina only looked at the blade when it was in its sheath when he attempted to show it to her. He contemplated asking her to teach him Kenjutsu, but he decided against it because of his prior experiences wanting to train under either Kushina or Minato. He reasoned that he would eventually find a style that suited him. He could still practice with it until then. It was strung to his side when it wasn't sealed up. It felt comfortable in his hands, so he didn't want to strap it. If I ever meet Muramasa, then I must give him my eternal thanks for this, he said. An energy signature he recognized seemed to be rapidly approaching them as he considered his sword. Since they knew when Naruto could sense someone, Itachi and Anko noticed that he tensed up a bit and were now on guard. As they prepared to defend themselves, they noticed Naruto quickly calm down, letting them know that whoever it was not hostile. A whirl of leaves materialized in front of the three of them as they were settling in. They all looked shocked when the leaves vanished, but Itachi was particularly startled to see Makoto, dressed in a Jonin uniform, standing in front of them with little Ria in her arms and laughing uncontrollably. "Makoto Obasan." Itachi was shocked to see his mother in her Jonin uniform and asked, "Ka-san, what are you doing here?" He couldn't recall the last time he had seen her wearing her old shinobi uniform, which was similar to most of the others except that she was wearing only one sleeve, leaving the other arm bare. A gray sash with the kanji for fire wrapped around her left thigh, and a strapped tanto on her back. She received 3 stunned looks before Naruto pumped the air with his fist. "Well, is that not obvious, Itachi-kun? You were waiting for your Jonin sensei and here I am," she said. He exclaimed, "Awesome. Makoto Obasan is our sensei," while little Ria cheered and appeared somewhat perplexed. Knowing that Makoto Uchiha, also known as Konoha no Hai Masudaresu, Fire Mistress of Konoha, was among the best kunoichi in the village, Anko appeared pleased. Kushina and Tsunade were up there with her. "Are you sure, Ka-san? But what about Sasuke and Ria? And does 2-san know about this?" "Do not worry, Itachi-kun. Sasuke will stay with one of our sitters while Ria will be with me during our D-rank missions. Then when we eventually get to higher missions I will arrange for some of the other clan members to watch over them while I am with you all." As Ria sat in her big brother's lap, she kissed his forehead, making him blush a little. "And don't worry about your father. Even if he doesn't like it, I am a shinobi of this village and I felt it was time to get back into this life. Plus I have always wanted to take a genin team and who better than the team my son is in," she said. Sitting in front of her new team, she said, "Now that I'm here, we can introduce ourselves to one another since it is a must-do for a new team. Say your name, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and future goals. I'll get started. My name is Makoto Uchiha, and I enjoy the village, my friends, my family, and fire jutsu. Traitors, rapists, people who harm children, and those who would harm my family are the things I detest. Cooking and learning something new every day are my pastimes." She grinned as she glanced at her youngest and oldest children and remarked, "My dreams for the future have already come true. Anko, why don't you start?" "My name is Mitsubishi Anko." They started to perspire a little at the end when she said, "I like my few friends, dango, fighting, and blood. My hobbies are making people who I don't like miserable. My dreams for the future: to kill a certain white snake. My dislikes are perverts, men who think women can't be as strong as them, arrogance, and more." Since she had never brought up that final point before, her two teammates stared at her with interest, and Makoto narrowed her eyes. Like the other village leaders, she was aware of Anko's past and could relate to her desire for that to be her dream. Next up was Itachi. "My name is Itachi Uchiha. My likes are my friends, family, ninjutsu and genjutsu and visiting cafes. My dislikes are those who try to hurt my precious people, steak, and those who think they are better than everyone else and who only crave power for selfish reasons. My hobbies are meditating and training to be a great shinobi. My dream is to protect my home and surpass the Uchihas of old," she said, "and now our last member," and Naruto nodded in agreement. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze. My likes are my precious people, ramen, fuinjutsu and kenjutsu. My dislikes are people who try to hurt my precious people, rapists, perverts and those that gain power for selfish reasons. My hobbies are training, spending time with my Gigi and my friends. And my dream for the future is to surpass my parents and to become a great protector of the village." "That is a wonderful dream, Naruto. It sounds like you want to be Hokage one day?" Naruto gave a shrug. "If my path as a shinobi leads me there then I guess so." Me, Ria exclaimed, raising her hand in an attempt to get the other people to laugh at the adorable young girl. Makoto took her daughter from her oldest and made her pout a little. "Another time, Ria-chan," she said. Naruto said, "So what do we do now?" "Well, now we will break up for the rest of the day. We don't need to get familiar with one another since we all know each other. Tomorrow I want all of you to go to Training Ground 13 since I want to test how strong the three of you are. I have an idea on Itachi and a little on Naruto but none on you, Anko. I want you all there at 9 a.m. Understood?" The three said, "Hi sensei," which made Makoto smile. "This is going to be an interesting experience. I can't wait to rub in Kushina's face," she thought aloud, laughing slyly. Naruto and Anko grinned broadly, and Itachi grinned slightly as she declared, "Since you are the only team that has currently graduated from the academy, the three of you are automatically made genin. I hereby announce us as Team 13. Makoto gave them a nod, smiled, and said goodbye before leaving the new Genin team alone and Shun shining away with Ria in her arms. In the office of the Hokage across from one of the few men in the elemental nations who could take on him one. On .1. Minato sat behind his desk, running a hand through his hair. Kushina was seated beside him, with Jiraiya on his left and Kakashi on his right. Sarutobi was sitting on one of the couches, smoking a pipe while remaining attentive and passive with their visitors. Kumo's fourth Raikage and the man Minato had fought against numerous times in the past, stood in front of them. Was a large man with dark skin and a goatee on his chin. His whitish blonde hair was slicked back. He had on his Raikage cloak and hat, with a big gold belt around his waist and golden weights around his wrists. There were two men next to one wore a typical white Kumo flak jacket and had white spiky hair that partially obscured his left eye. He had a cleaver-like sword on his back and the black lightning symbol on his right arm. A Caucasian man to his right was dressed in the typical Kumo shinobi uniform, but his right eye was covered by his forehead protector and his head was wrapped in bandages. Gave Minato a small snort but thanked him anyway. "Welcome to the Leaf Village Raikage. Sama, I am happy that you made it here safe and sound," Minato said. Minato nodded, and Kushina remained vigilant. "Yes, well, since we are here, we may as well get right down to it. No sense at postponing this," he said. She had always been extremely tired around Kumo shinobi since they had tried to kidnap her when she was younger. To tell the truth, she had absolutely no faith in them. "I agree. I see no reason why our two villages should have to be at each other's throats more, and I am more than willing to put the past behind us if it means the Leaf and the Cloud can finally see each other as allies other than enemies. I agree as well. As Raikage, the safety of my village is my top priority and it will always come first. If it means keeping any ridiculous wars from breaking out again, then I will do it." Minato also gave that a nod. He was happy that as the cage of his village, he realized that alliances would actually help one another, even though he and never exactly agreed. Although Konoha was somewhat more laid back in that regard, they always maintained a high level of security, whereas Kumo had always been more militarized than Konoha. Kumo had always been an army-like village with tight uniforms. When Minato said, "I am surprised that your brother B is not here. Normally the two of you are inseparable," narrowed his eyes slightly. B is a Jinchuriki, therefore he knows that his place is to stay at the village and be a protector Kumo. As a Jinchuriki, he is a tool to be used to keep Kumo safe. Although the Leaf Ninja scowled at that, they were aware that other Jinchuriki were typically treated in a similar manner. "You know, I have always been curious to who the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was. Since you know who Kumo's Jinchurikis are, do you not think we should know who yours is?" Everyone became tense as Kushina and Minato gave the man a menacing look. The white-haired man tensed and braced himself for something. Kakashi followed suit. Minato said, "That information is classified Raikage, Sama," in a calm and level voice. With his voice growing a bit louder, he asked, "Oh, so do you believe that my village does not deserve to know of your weapon while you know ours?" Kushina struck the table with her fist. "Jinchurikis are not tools that you can control simply because of what they contain. They're human beings who carry a great burden on their shoulders." While Minato smoothed her by making tiny circles on her hand, he simply raised an eyebrow at her outburst, seemingly unaffected by the remark. "I assume your Jinchuriki is someone close to you because of your strange protectiveness toward them." Since Kushina's face twisted into a look that suggested she was prepared to kill, all of the Leaf Shinobi tensed up once more and were mentally getting ready for a fight. "Well, if you won't tell us, then perhaps it was a mistake coming here, since you cannot be honest with us when we are being honest with you." Kushina snorted and said, "Honest, comparing it to your attempt to abduct me as a girl and your subsequent denial of it. Absolutely, in all honesty. I am not responsible for what my father did when he was Raikage. To tell the truth, I never understood all the commotion surrounding you, Uzumaki. You were only ever proficient in Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. You were only mediocre at the rest." Knowing that this meeting was not going well at all, Minato did the same thing, and Kushina appeared to be about to bow up at the remark A was making to her, while the white-haired man simply shook his head and palmed his face. He knew it was a mistake to bring her to this meeting because A and Kushina had never been on good terms. A got up from his chair and said, "Perhaps coming here was a mistake," which caused everyone else to stand up as well. "Maybe tomorrow we can talk about this more." Since he genuinely wanted a treaty to be made between their two villages that would prevent future conflicts, Minato offered, "Let's keep a cool head, think on it tonight, and then resume tomorrow the details of the alliance." Minato wanted the village children to be forced to follow that path and did not want another war to start. "We will continue this tomorrow," he said, scoffed but still nodded. He said, "Until then, we'll stay at the Golden Leaf Hotel," and Minato nodded. Then, with a sigh, the white-haired man gave Minato a slight smile before leaping out the window to leave the meeting. "Sorry about the window. It's all right." The white-haired man nodded and left through the door, with the other man trailing behind him. "We know of a few people who tend to not use doors," Minato said, gesturing to Jiraiya, who scratched the back of his. Despite how poorly the meeting went, everyone breathed easily when the door closed. "Well, that could have gone better," Kushina remarked as she examined her fingernails while everyone gave her a playful glare and she whistled naively. Alongside Team 13 Shizune, who was watching the kids because many of the clan heads were gathering after the meeting with the Raikage, sat beside Naruto, Anko, and Itachi at Ichiraku's ramen as night fell. She was accompanied by Mito and Eiji. Mina, who was now nearly a year old, was sitting on Naruto's lap, clapping her hands as he fed her a small amount of ramen. Mito and Eiji were sitting on their seats, playing fully swinging their legs with noodles dangling from their lips. Shizune said, "Those of Uzumaki blood just naturally like ramen, no matter how young," to which Itachi and Anko nodded. Naruto said to his younger sister, "You love ramen, don't you, Mina-chan?" and she simply nodded her head and smiled at him with her few remaining teeth. Even Anko, a very tomboyish and tough girl, had to concede that little Mina was adorable. "Aw, she is so sweet, aren't you, Munchkin?" she said. Itachi and Naruto both grinned at the exchange between Mina and Anko, and when Naruto felt a tug on his sleeve, he saw Mito and Eiji staring at him with wide eyes and their arms extended. As he looked down at his two siblings, Naruto had a strange expression on his face. Although he loved them both, the twins were the reason for his parents' attention, and he had been a little distant from Mito and Eiji, especially Mito, who was very clinging to him and wanted to follow him everywhere. Mina, who was almost identical to Naruto, was exhibiting the same symptoms. Eiji was less needy than the other two little girls, but they both enjoyed spending time with their big brother. Shizune picked up the twins after noticing his small predicament. Eiji nodded in agreement with Mito's complaint. "No, I want Naru," but Shizune smiled warmly at them. "No, darlings, it's time to head home." The twins gave her a disapproving look as she said, "You both need your baths." "Mito-chan, Eiji-chan," Naruto said to get the twins' attention, "I'll try to read you a bedtime story when I get home, okay?" he said, eliciting smiles from both of them, which caused Naruto to smile slightly in return. After setting the two down, Shizune put Mina in the stroller. Mina started crying a little because she didn't want to leave her big brother's comforting embrace. "Are you coming, Naruto?" Shizune inquired. "Nay-chan, not just yet. I'm going to get another bowl." "Alright, but be home soon. You might be a shinobi now, but you're still 9 and you need your sleep," she replied. "That goes for all of you too." Shizune kissed Naruto on the forehead before he and his three siblings left with Mito, Eiji, and Mina to return home, and Naruto felt the Anbus that were keeping watch move to follow them. Anko and Itachi also nodded. Before Itachi turned to Naruto, they watched them leave. "Are you still attempting to keep them apart?" Naruto nodded and let out a small sigh as he asked. "Why are you trying to put space between them?" Anko asked, giving him a strange look. She said, "They're so cute, I want to eat them up," but Naruto remained silent. Itachi said, "It's just some personal business, Anko-san," which caused Anko to give them both a strange look before nodding. The three sat there chatting, occasionally talking to Tucci, the owner of the ramen stand, who they saw as a kind middle-aged man who was willing to help anyone in need and who had a daughter their own age named Ayame, whom they had seen a few times. Naruto sensed something was off as Anko and Itachi talked to Itachi. He could sense the Kumo shinobi and the Raikage enter the village as soon as they did, and the Raikage stood out from the other two because of his immense power, which was equal to that of his father and his Jiji. Hoping for the stool, Naruto stood in the center of the deserted street, staring in the direction of the signature. "What's it, Naruto-kun?" Anko followed him with Itachi and asked. He put the two on alert by saying, "One of the Kumo shinobi, who was not at the hotel with the others. He was by the compound of Hyuga. He's there, but why?" Itachi and Anko's eyes widened as Naruto said, aloud. "You don't believe that he will abduct a Hyuga, do you?" Since they both knew that Kumo somehow wanted the Byakugan, a dojutsu belonging to the Hyuga clan, Anko inquired. He said, "Let's go check it out," and the two nodded before making their way to the Hyuga compound. They reached one of the buildings across from the Hyuga compound in a matter of minutes, and Naruto started looking around right away for the Kumo shinobi he could sense. He searched for a moment before spotting a black-clad figure against one of the outer walls, which turned out to be the Kumo shinobi. His right eye was shielded by a forehead protector, and his eyes widened when he saw Hinata Hyuga, the Hyuga heiress, unconscious in his left arm. "Go warn my father, Anko." Anko didn't need to be reminded twice to take off as quickly as she could, so he said, "Now." Every clan leader is present at that meeting. Naruto nodded, and Itachi remarked, he knew the head of the Hyuga clan would not be here. "At some point, we must purchase. We cannot allow him to escape." Itachi and Naruto inhaled deeply, aware that things could go horribly wrong, but since they were now the lead shinobi, it was their responsibility to keep the locals safe. The two boys threw shuriken at the Kumo shinobi just as he was about to move. Sensing their approach, the Kumo shinobi ducked out of the way and landed slightly to his left. He glanced to his left, and his eyes widened slightly when Naruto appeared slightly ahead of him, the Shisui unsheathed and descending toward his head. After a brief moment of showing interest in the black sword, he reached into his right pocket for a kunai and blocked the blow, although he buckled slightly under the force of the blade and saw his kunai crack in a few places. When he blocked and turned to face Naruto, Itachi emerged from the side and snatched Hinata out of the man's grasp. The man swore loudly, and they both heard it as Itachi and Naruto leapt away as quickly as they could, regrouping to protect Hinata. "Give the girl brats to me. You do not wish to annoy me," he taunted them. "The leaf is our shinobi." Naruto retorted, "You cannot kidnap one of our own." "Let's see if the you brats can live up to what you claim," the man said, laughing before sealing his hands. Raiden. Dendu Underi. As if wishing to split them in two, a thin wire of lightning shot out from his midsection and traveled around him, toward Naruto and Itachi, and toward their stomach. While Itachi was able to jump just before the man used the jutsu, Naruto leapt into the air, and when Naruto looked at Itachi, he saw that his eyes were red and had 3 tomos in each. Sharingan, he assumed Itachi used to anticipate the man's next move. The Kumo materialized in front of Naruto as they were jumping, kicked the little blonde, and knocked him to the ground. He did the same to Itachi, but with the Sharingan turned on, Itachi was able to kick himself and avoid the swipes, but he was unable to attack because Hinata was still in his arms. When he heard Naruto's voice, Itachi gritted his teeth a little because he was unable to defend himself. "Water style. Water bullet," he said, as water balls started to move in the direction of the Kumo ninja. When the Kumo nin leapt aside, Itachi was able to emerge in the Hyuga compound's gardens, lay her down, and return to the fight. When he returned, he saw Naruto with his blade redrawn, deflecting the Kumo nin's swift and strong blows, but the man's superior strength pushed him back and against a wall. The Kumo nin smiled, then saw a kunai thrown at him. He humped back and away from the kunai, cursing once more. Then, standing side by side, Naruto and Itachi charged in the direction of the adversary. While Itachi attempted to sweep the Kumo nin's legs with his Uchiha style, Naruto threw punches and palm strikes, aiming to hit some of the weak and pressure points that Tsunade and Shizune had mentioned to him. They attempted to push him away, but since he was an adult and had greater physical strength, they were able to avoid his slow strikes by using their smaller bodies. He swore that he even felt a low-level genjutsu being applied to him before he was able to swiftly get rid of it with a pulse of chakra, but he was shocked that they simply kept getting back up and throwing strikes at him despite the fact that he was able to land a few hits on the two. The Uchiha, he thought, knowing that Itachi would try to trap him in a genjutsu with the Sharingan. When the two genin did not stop, the Kumo ninja became irritated and both of them leapt back. The ninja saw it coming and leapt into the air to avoid it, but his eyes widened when he realized Naruto was now in front of him and had Shisui drawn out again. "Kaden. Ga Kakia. No Jutsu," Itachi called as a fireball erupted from his mouth and headed toward the ninja. As the Kumo nin attempted to push himself back, Naruto swung his blade, and even though the man dodged, the tip of the Shisui sank into him and slashed him across the chest. The Kumo nin stumbled back a bit and grabbed Naruto's chest as he landed next to Itachi, who both formed their stances. He checked his wound and found it was shallow, but it covered the majority of his chest. "You little shit," he said. "What are these children? Are they not just any kids?" he said, looking directly into their eyes as Naruto's violet eyes and Itachi's Sharingan stared at him. His two hands surged with lightning and he put them together, saying, "Raiden. Saw. G Furasha," not realizing that Itachi had just coped his jutsu when he saw the hand signs. Another powerful chakra signature materialized around them just as the attack was ready to be launched, and a blur emerged from the Hyuga compound, striking the Kumo ninja in the chest. The Hyuga screamed, "Hake Sanya, ni sha," as he struck the Kumo nin in the chest 30.2 times. After it was over, Naruto and Itachi saw the man stagger back a bit before blood gushed from his mouth, his eyes rolling into the back of his head, and he fell to the ground lifeless. They recognized the Hyuga as Hisashi Hyuga, Heishi Hyuga's younger twin brother, after noticing that he resembled the clan chief Heishi. After giving the fallen man a fierce look, Hisashi approached the two boys and bowed to them. "Thank you for protecting Hinata." Just as they were about to react, Naruto sensed the appearance of a huge mass of chakras. From their right, they turned to see Jiraiya, Tsunade, Naruto's parents, and the clan leaders, along with a few Anbu, arrive. Naru, Chan, Itachi, Kun. After flinching at the sound of their mother's voices, Naruto and Itachi were soon blocked by Kushina and Mikoto, who started to examine and threaten them. Both glared at the fallen shinobi as they noticed the bruises starting to appear on their faces. After the two boys assured the two mothers that everything was fine, Mikoto stayed behind with the boys, while Kushina nodded and joined Minato in talking to Hisashi. While Mikoto continued to examine him and give him kisses, Naruto observed Itachi turn slightly red. He could hear his mother saying that they ought to see how Mina and the twins were doing from where he was standing. Naruto thought bitterly as he shook slightly and looked down at the ground. Even now, they're all she can think about, he thought. Naruto shook his head a little and started to leave, heading straight home as Itachi shot him a dejected look and Mikoto pondered what was bothering him so much. After hearing what Kushina had to say, Tsunade and Hiruzen turned to Naruto and gazed at him sorrowfully. "We need to talk to them about this Sarutobi. Sensei. Look at Naru. Chan, even if he doesn't necessarily show it, the way they treat him is affecting him. I heard from Shizune that he is distancing himself from the twins. It's like he doesn't want them to get too close to him," Tsunade said with a voice full of worry. He responded, concerned about the young boy he saw as a grandson. "While I agree with you, Tsunade Chan, the question still remains. How would we get them to see what they are doing to young Naruto? I doubt they even realize that their actions, or rather, inaction, is causing him any sort of grief. At moment the only thing we can do is wait and see if they will realize their mistake before it is too late." Waiting for his team and sensei to arrive so they could begin their mission, Naruto stood at Konoha's north gate. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little excited because today was their first C-rank mission ever. The Hyuga clan and the Shinobi Council were very grateful to him, Itachi, and Anko on the night the Kumo shinobi tried to kidnap the Hyuga heiress because, had it not been for Naruto and Itachi stopping the ninja and Anko warning the Hokage, they might have lost the Hyuga heiress. They rewarded all three genin by making the rescue a completed A-rank mission. As the youngest team to ever embark on an A-ranked mission, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko also set a new record. Naturally, Mikoto reprimanded them, but they understood that she was only speaking as the mother. She knew Naruto, Itachi, and Anko would achieve great things in the future, but she was also very proud of her first genin team. The following day, they took their test, which was essentially to show Mikoto how strong they were. She wasn't let down and had been on the defensive several times before pushing them away and bringing them under control. The three of them came to understand that Mikoto was a strong woman who had earned the title of Fire Mistress of the Leaf. They then conducted basic D-rank missions throughout the Leaf Village for the following 6 months. They devised a straightforward schedule that involved completing D-rank missions in the morning, taking a lunch break, and then reconvening for a few hours of training in the afternoon. Since Mikoto was not the kind to ignore one while concentrating on the other two, she was grateful that she had been able to identify specific elements in each of the three to aid in their training. Given that they both possessed the Sharingan, she assisted Itachi with his ninjutsu and genjutsu. In addition to practicing her elemental ninjutsu, which she chose to learn after witnessing the two boys use theirs for the first time, Anko, who was proficient in taijutsu, would spend an hour or more simply sparring with the girl. Not surprisingly, she also possessed a fire element, which was advantageous. She briefly struggled with Naruto before being able to assist him with his taijutsu and kenjutsu. The dynamic was similar even though she employed a tanto instead of a katana, and Naruto had plenty of time to hone his kenjutsu skills against his sensei. Naruto stared at his two hands and looked down at the ground as he considered his abilities. Given how well known his parents and teachers were throughout the world, he had always pondered what would make him stand out from them. His mother possessed her kenjutsu, his father the Hiroshin, both of them fa, injutsu, Mikoto the fire jutsu. Tsunade the super strength and healing abilities, Jiraiya the Toad Jutsu, Kakashi the Chidori, Itachi the Sharingan, and Sarutobi the Bojutsu, and decades of experience. What would make him different from the others, he had wondered, and he finally figured out what that was a month ago. Rewind. Tsunade threw another punch, which Naruto was able to jump sideways and avoid at the last second, causing him to pant a little. He got back on his feet and rushed in Tsunade's direction. Since Tsunade started teaching him taijutsu, this was one of their regular spars. Since Tsunade was the last of her clan and she did not want to see her ancestral home gather dust, they were in a brief training on the Senju compound, which they had used in recent years. She nearly effortlessly caught his right fist in her right hand as he threw it at her. When she did, Naruto's right leg also rose and swung sideways. Tsunade deflected the blow by raising her left elbow. She smirked and said, "Got you now, Naru-chan." Her gaze strayed to the side, where she saw that he had used the momentum to propel another blow in her direction with his left fist. It was about to hit, but she sidestepped it by turning her head, then immediately spun around and threw him to the opposite end of the room. Naruto was able to land on his feet, but because of his speed, he fell and struck a tree with his back. Shizune and Hiruzen recoiled slightly from the impact from the sidelines, but they saw that Naruto was already standing up before he charged forward and engaged Tsunade once more. Although Shizune was not shocked by Uzumaki's endurance, she did commend him, saying, "Naru-chan sure has spirit. He and Tsunade-sama have been going at it for 2 hours now and he is still going." Hiruzen remarked, "Naruto-kun has come a long way in these few years." He was astounded by the young blonde's progress since he started training with them. As Shizune nodded, he inquired, "Are you and Tsunade still planning on showing him the Shasen Jutsu?" Tsunade-sama wants him to know it just in case of emergencies, plus his chakra control has only gotten better. I dare say a few more years and his control might surpass my own. She had even been thinking of giving him the Saza Seisei on his forehead, but she wanted to leave that decision to Naruto. Hiruzen nodded, understanding that although the Saza Seisei Tsunade's creation was truly remarkable, it had a disadvantage in that it reduced life expectancy. As Tsunade continued tossing Naruto around like a rag doll, Naruto gasped back with him. Her taijutsu is simply too powerful. His eyes widened as her hand glowed blue and she clenched it into a fist. It is no wonder she hardly needs to use any ninjutsu or genjutsu, he thought. She called out to him, "Be ready, Naru-chan," before slamming her fist into the ground, which caused the ground in front of her to start rupturing and tearing apart. Naruto tried his best to maintain his balance as the ground around him felt like an earthquake. Even when she was winning, Tsunade's strength was always going to be a game changer. As the ground in front of him exploded and debris flew in his direction, he felt his foot become trapped between a piece of the rubble just as he was ready to jump out of the war zone. Tsunade, Hiruzen, and Shizune were on the verge of running over to help him after noticing that his foot had become stuck when they paused to watch Naruto accomplish a feat that neither of them had ever imagined seeing again. Unaware of his options, Naruto instinctively poured chakra into his hands and clasped his palms together. The debris was about to hit him when wood pillars erupted out of the ground and surrounded him in a protective dome, stopping it in its tracks. There was total silence as the shaking ceased and Naruto gazed at the wooden dome before him, his eyes so wide that they seemed to be about to pop out. When Tsunade saw one of her grandfather's techniques, she even fell to her knees, and the 3 older shinobi were in a similar state. Shizune mumbled that it must have been some sort of genjutsu and attempted to refute it, while Tsunade muttered, trying to make sense of what had just transpired, "It's not possible." Naruto. Hiruzen muttered, glancing at the boy who shared their condition, "Just what are you going to become?" Final flashback. A day I will never forget, Naruto thought as he and his 3 teachers concluded that he had inherited the most illustrious bloodline Konoha had ever had. For some reason they were still attempting to determine. The Mokuton. They kept it a secret for the time being because Naruto's life would change drastically if word spread to Konoha's enemies or even to some of the village's higher dot-ups, such as Danzo or the elders, that he possessed the fabled Mokuton of the Shodai Hokage. He was startled out of his reverie by the sound of Naruto-kun. Makoto, Itachi, and Anko were approaching him. Makoto held a scroll in his right hand and asked, "Do you have everything you need?" In an attempt to become as familiar with the mission as possible, Naruto asked, "So to recap, what was the mission again?" Makoto waved a small scroll in her hands and sealed it into her wrist, saying, "It's very simple really. We are to take this scroll. And we have to deliver it to Mifune, the general of Iron Country. The scroll has updates on the next shipment of chakra metal that we get traded with from Iron Country. I thought Iron Country was a neutral country, plus it has samurais not ninja, replied Anko. It is, but even though it does not align itself with the other nations, it does trade with them since Iron Country is a cold nation and it needs things like food imported since they can't grow food well in cold climates. Then let's go. I can't wait, this will be my first time out of the village, said Naruto. Anko remained silent as Itachi swiftly repeated the same. From Konoha, Team 13 departed for Iron Country's frigid climate. After 2 days they paused for a brief moment to rest from tree jumping and to put some food in their stomachs, and Naruto, Makoto, Itachi, and Anko sat on 2 logs. Since their D ranks never took more than a few hours, the 3 genin found the 2 days of travel to be an interesting experience. At the moment, Naruto was enjoying some onigiri that he had prepared before the mission. Making simple, efficient meals that could be carried on missions was another thing Shizune, his Chan, had instilled in him. He made sure to have enough for the journey there and back because onigiri had swiftly risen to the top of the list. Anko was eating some dango she had bought before they left Konoha, while Makoto and Itachi were enjoying some leftover stew that Makoto had prepared for supper before they left. While they were eating, Naruto started to notice that several signatures were rapidly approaching them from all sides. He turned to face Makoto, who, like Anko and Itachi, had already picked it up. After giving each other a nod, the 4 quietly prepared their weapons. A minute later, a barrage of arrows shot out of the surrounding woods and struck them, but all 4 of them exploded in smoke and were replaced by a log. After blocking an overweight bandit's sword strike, Naruto kicked the man in the stomach, knocking him back and unconscious. They were eating in a small area when a dozen or so men, clearly bandits, ran in. Clearly, they believed they could defeat a woman and 3 children. As they examined the logs that were now on the ground, one person inquired, "Where did they go?" They were about to hear someone else speak when they heard a rustle overhead and looked up to see Team 13 emerge from the trees and land in the middle of them before they launched their attack. Dropping between 2, Naruto was able to split kick each of them in the face, knocking them back. When one of them stood back up, he dodged a blow and struck his left kneecap hard, breaking it in the process. The bandit then fell, clutching his knee in agony. The other stood up, but before he could move, Naruto pinned him to the tree with a barrage of shuriken. From his vantage point, he saw how easily Makoto and Itachi dispatched the bandits in their immediate vicinity. However, Makoto appeared bored and was only chopping the backs of their necks and swiftly tying them up or driving her tanto through their chests. Blood poured from the man's throat and fell to the ground like a bag of potatoes as he watched Anko shoot a snake out of her sleeve and the snake bite down on the man's jugular. He saw that she didn't mind that Anko had killed. He questioned whether she had ever committed murder. He kicked the man in the face, sending him flying back and colliding with a tree after dodging a big wooden club swing. As he looked around, he sensed that Itachi and Makoto had swiftly eliminated the few remaining bandits. But all of a sudden, a tiny surge of murderous intent struck him. Even though it was insignificant compared to what he was used to during his spars with Makoto or Tsunade, he was still aware of it. He turned around, prepared his blade, and threw it forward, his body operating automatically. He felt a tiny splash of warmth hit his face as he did. He looked at his hand in front of him after wiping his other hand over the damp splash. Blood. Looking ahead, he saw a man in his early 20s holding a chipped sword while dressed similarly to the other bandits in the area. The young man was being stabbed in the chest by Naruto's blade, which was in front of him. When Naruto realized what he had done, a horrified expression came to his face, and his hands started to shake. He gazed into the brown man's eyes and saw them abruptly roll into the back of his. Slowly, Naruto removed his blade from his chest and stood motionless while the man's breathing came to a complete halt and he collapsed to the ground. Anko was seen standing behind Itachi, who had just puked, and Makoto asked, "Naruto?" from behind him. He had also snapped one of the bandits' necks, taking his first life. Itachi just stared at the ground while Anko gave him a gentle pat on the back. As Makoto drew closer and put her hands on his shoulders, he stammered, I killed him. I didn't mean to, it just happened. My body reacted on its own." As Naruto abruptly escaped her grasp and puked behind a bush, just like Itachi had done moments before, she thought, the first kill is always the hardest to take. Makoto started gathering the dead bandits' bodies and piling them up as he went. In order to properly dispose of the bodies, she then used a few fire jutsu techniques and set them on fire. Makoto quickly killed the remaining ones by slitting their throats with her tanto and adding them to the blazing fire. Her eyes then grew softer as she looked at Naruto and her son. She desired this C rank in part because of this. She wanted Naruto and Itachi to have their first kill because the route to Iron Country was notorious for having many bandit encampments. Although killing was always difficult for Genin, it was part of the shinobi's job description. She knew Anko was alright, and she saw that she was. Because of her previous tutoring, Anko had already killed. They wouldn't think twice about killing again after their first kill. She was 13 when she committed her first murder, and occasionally she still thinks about the man she killed. But Naruto and Itachi were much stronger than other people her Uchiha, and she knew in her heart that they could handle it and overcome it. She patted and gently rubbed Naruto's and Itachi's shoulders, saying, "Come on." The three Genin nodded as she said, "Let's get moving. We should cover as much ground as we can while we still have light." Itachi and Naruto were a little slower than usual, but that was because they were still thinking about their first kills, which would take a few more days. After 2 days, Makoto, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko were standing in a large office with samurai armor and many blades adorning it when she said, "The scroll we were sent to deliver Mifune Sama." 3 picture frames depicting 3 men in samurai armor, all of whom looked incredibly strong and menacing, were hung on one of the walls. "Thank you, Uchiha-san," a man behind the desk said as he carefully accepted the scroll from her and started reading its contents. In a sense, Mifune was an old man, possibly in his late 40s or early 50s. He had a small mustache, bandages wrapped around the top of his head, and long, purplish hair that was beginning to gray. He paired his black sandals with a basic navy blue kimono. Naruto noticed that a black-handled katana was strapped to his side. Naruto had to admit that the helmets and traditional Iron Country armor of the 2 samurai standing next to him seemed a little odd. Mifune read for a few minutes without making any facial expressions, then nodded and smiled slightly at them. He pulled out a blank scroll and some ink and said, "The terms in this scroll are agreeable. Allow me a few minutes to write up a reply scroll." While the team waited in silence, he started writing. When he was done, he returned the new scroll to Makoto, who thanked him and bowed. Mifune stopped them just as they were ready to depart. "If I were you, Uchiha-san, I would stay in town for a day or 2. There is a strong blizzard that will be coming through the area tonight. Anyone who gets caught in it will most likely freeze to death," he continued. Makoto bowed to him once more to express her gratitude, saying, "I see. Thank you for the information and looking out for my team." Mifune sent Makoto a silent message using a few hand signals as Naruto, Itachi, and Anko started to leave the room. Both boys had a worn-out, exhausted expression on their faces and appeared incredibly emotionless. "Why are the 2 boys acting strangely?" Makoto responded with a few hand gestures and a small, sorrowful sigh. "Kill first." It did explain everything, and Mifune's face lit up with understanding at once. He put his sword in his lap, sat back in his chair, and nodded to her as they walked away. He was intrigued when he saw Naruto holding the blade in his right hand. He was a little interested in how he was doing because he knew that not many people from the Leaf practiced Kenjutsu. Early the following morning, with the image of the man he killed still fresh in his mind, Naruto lay on his bed and gazed up at the ceiling that was spread out across his futon. That man would always be in front of him when he tried to go to sleep. "I wonder if this happens to others who kill for the first time," he thought as he peered out the window, where the morning sun was slowly making its appearance, but it was still dark outside. He turned to see Itachi sleeping after spending several hours discussing it with Makoto the previous evening. Itachi appeared much better than he did. Makoto did the same for Naruto, but despite her words, he couldn't get them out of his head. He climbed out of his futon and dressed, realizing that he would not be sleeping any longer for the foreseeable future. He left his room, which Mifune had graciously provided for them while they were in Iron Country, carrying Shisui in his right hand to avoid being caught in the nighttime blizzard. Naruto wandered through the corridors, taking in the paintings and ornamental samurai armors on exhibit, before coming to a stop in one of the indoor training rooms they were permitted to use. The samurai had several enormous rooms constructed specifically for training because Iron Country was not the ideal place to train. The room Naruto entered had racks for different types of weapons, training dummies made of stone and wood, and a large circle about 10 meters wide for short-time spars to participate in. Unsheathing Shisui, he approached one of the wooden training dummies and started practicing with his sword. Since Naruto had been carrying the blade for almost 6 months and had become both physically stronger and accustomed to it, it no longer felt particularly heavy to him. Naruto danced around the wooden dummy for about half an hour, stabbing and slashing at the straw dummy, but he didn't have a particular sword style, so he was just sort of going with the hits. As he attacked the straw dummy, a pair of eyes watched him from behind. Naruto sensed that someone was watching him, but he kept it a secret. They seemed more like they were inquisitive than threatening. as though they were curious about his next move. A few seconds later, the person observing Naruto sprang forward at high speed, brandishing a katana, and swung in Naruto's direction. Sensing their sudden appearance behind him, Naruto quickly spun around and used Shisui to block the blow. He was shocked to see Mifune standing in front of him, analyzing Naruto and his sword, when he turned around. "Lord Mifune!" Naruto exclaimed, startled, as he swiftly put his sword away and bowed to the Iron Country general. Mifune waved it away as soon as Naruto said, "My apologies for engaging you. I engaged you, young Namikaze. It is I who should apologize. I wanted to see how well you acted with a blade since I saw you carrying it the other day. I must admit your reaction time with it is quite impressive," Naruto said, somewhat surprised that one of the world's greatest swordsmen was praising him. "Thank you, Lord Mifune." As Naruto shook his head, he questioned, "Though by your footwork and the way you hold the blade, you do not have a style for it?" He thought it strange that a boy with a mother as skilled with a blade as Kushina was did not already know how to wield a sword. "Does your mother Kushina Uzumaki not teach you? She is an expert in Kenjutsu last I checked." Mifune saw a tiny expression of resentment appear on Naruto's face as he shifted slightly. "My mother is a busy woman. She does not have the time to teach me and continue her other duties in the village." He was looking away. Mifune's expression softened a little after he said, "I see." He wanted to see Shisui, so he said, "May I?" Given that his sword was quickly becoming one of his most valuable possessions, Naruto was a little hesitant, but he gave in. As soon as Mifune took it, he saw that it was heavier than other blades. Although he appreciated its distinct beauty, he also noted how different it looked because the metal was black with a red wave-like pattern running down the center of the blade and ending at the tip. This is a strong blade. A blade meant for a lot of power and physical strength. To be able to hold a blade that is as heavy as it is at your age is impressive. Though you would need a style to fit this, he said with a nod. As he handed Naruto Shisui back and made his way to one of the sparring circles, Mifune said, "Come." As Mifune and Naruto stood in the circle, Mifune pulled his blade from its sheath. "Come at me with the intent to kill Naruto-san. Otherwise don't attack at all." Naruto nodded while slightly biting his lip. He inhaled deeply before moving forward toward Mifune while maintaining a firm but not overly tight grip on the handle of the Shisui. He struck at Mifune, who quickly deflected the blow with his blade and initially went on the defensive, allowing Naruto to land a few blows. Every blow that Naruto threw at Mifune was consistently and effortlessly blocked by the skilled samurai. As he spun, Mifune caught Naruto off balance and struck him in the chest with the back of his sword, causing him to stagger back. "You must try much harder than that." Naruto shook his head and moved forward once more, trying to catch Mifune off guard by striking quickly this time. However, Mifune easily blocked and avoided the blows once more. With a little more force and speed, Naruto swung Shisui a little higher than before and brought it down. A loud clang reverberated throughout the training area as Mifune locked his blade with Naruto's. Naruto attempted to push back, but Mifune's strength was superior, so he pushed him back and then pushed him away a little before using the back of his sword to knock him back, just like before. Naruto took a few deep breaths, feeling a little irritated that he was unable to hit Mifune with a single blow. For the third time, he charged forward, but this time, Mifune locked his sword with Naruto, whirled it around in his hand, and then quickly chopped the back of his hand to disarm him, causing him to drop Shisui. "No." As he saw Mifune swing his sword in his direction, Naruto thought, clearly, Mifune wanted to put Naruto on the post and let him figure out how to get his sword back on his own. Naruto took a leap of faith just as the strike was about to hit him. As he waited for the strike to occur, he thought, "Please let this work." Then he felt the air shift slightly. He threw his hands in front of him, catching the blade in his palms as he raised them. For one, Mifune was a little surprised by the unexpected action. Even though he was holding back a lot, the strike might not have been very strong, but Mifune was impressed by his ability to catch the blade in two palms. He slid the blade out of Naruto's hands and thought, "Not bad." He swung at Naruto once more, but this time Naruto ducked and rolled in the direction of his blade, making use of his size. He lifted the Shisui and brought it up, deflecting another blow. Mifune gave an example by pushing Naruto away once more, this time knocking Shisui out of his sword just enough to send it flying in the air. He said, "Not bad. Now you are thinking like a swordsman. However, you should never drop your sword in battle as your opponent may use it against you." Mifune grabbed it and then held the two blades in a scissor-like shape against Naruto's neck. In the meantime, Naruto was somewhat taken aback by how swiftly that had occurred, confirming Mifune's strength. Mifune looked at the boy. He is undoubtedly talented. He will be a formidable force if he puts in the necessary effort and develops the appropriate style. Naruto took a few steps back after accepting the sword from Mifune, but he kept his hand on the handle and sheathed it. As the two sparred for the next few hours, Mifune was convinced that Naruto would become a formidable opponent as he grew older. Again, he said, causing Naruto to stare at him for a few seconds before grinning inwardly and charging forward. After a day as he and his group got ready to return to the Leaf Village, Naruto packed his things and sealed them in a storage container. As Naruto completed the last of his packing, Itachi, Mikoto, and Anko were waiting for him outside the room. He patted the handle, with Shisui strapped to his side. Naruto felt that his sword skills had somewhat improved after sparring with Mifune a lot during his stay. He had learned that in order to be a great swordsman, his sword must become a part of him, as if it were an extension of his body. Additionally, Mifune instilled in him the value of patience, which was crucial for a swordsman. Following their most recent battle, Mifune expressed his admiration for Naruto and encouraged him to strengthen himself so that they could engage in a sword fight like never before. A slight breeze blew through the room just as Naruto was ready to leave, causing him to halt in the appearance of a chakra signature. But it vanished as swiftly as it appeared. He turned to see a slightly larger scroll now prominently displayed on one of the side tables. As he approached it, he noticed a note on the side. This style has not yet been mastered and has no master. In addition to teaching you the fundamentals, it will let you develop your own methods. Maybe you'll be the first. Mifune Naruto's eyebrows raised in astonishment. He felt he had found a style that would work for him, so he was grateful that the General of Iron Country had been kind enough to point out some of his shortcomings and work with him to improve them. Naruto picked up the scroll and read the side's name. Itoryu, style of one sword. Naruto opened it up and looked at it for a few moments before a smile came to his face. Weird name, he thought. Before hastily putting the scroll into a storage seal on his arm, Naruto mumbled, "This is perfect." He left the room without noticing Mifune standing next to the window, his arms folded, his eyes closed, and his back to the wall. Before he vanished, he said, "I look forward to seeing who you become, young Uzumaki." After rejoining his team, Naruto briefly glanced back at the compound before they started to return to Konoha. As he sat behind his desk with Mikoto and Team 13 in front of him, Minato asked in full Hokage mode, "And so do the three of you understand the importance of this?" "Yes, Hokage." Sama, respectfully, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko responded. "Very good. The three of you are the only team from the Leaf Village this time around who will be competing in the Chunin exams, therefore the village has a lot of high hopes for the three of you." "Yes, Hokage." Sama, they repeated, and Mikoto looked proudly at her squad. "And above all else, give it your all and know that Konoha and all its inhabitants, shinobi and civilian, are behind you 100% and will be rooting for you every step of the way. The three of you are the best crop of genin we have had in a very long time. The three of you are more than ready for these exams, based on what your sensei has been telling me," Minato remarked, gazing proudly at Naruto. However, Naruto maintained his composure and gave his father a somewhat bored look. "We will do our best," the three of them said simultaneously. "Thank you, Hokage." Sama. As he handed them their forms, Minato nodded. "Remember, you need those forms to get into the exams. So if when you lose those forms, then none of you will be able to enter." The three genin nodded and bowed to their Hokage before turning to leave the room. This year's Chunin exams will take place in Suna, which is 3 days away. The exams start in 5 days, so you will need to get moving by tomorrow, he said. Minato thought Naruto would be grinning broadly because he always liked Kushina's cooking. "Naruto, your call. Chan would like to know what you want for dinner this evening since you won't be home for a while. She said she will make you whatever you want," Minato said. After hearing his father, Naruto turned slowly, surprising Mikoto and Minato by staring at them with a blank expression on his face. "Tell Chan not to worry. I'm having dinner round Gigi's tonight," he replied. He walked away before either of them could speak, leaving the two adults alone in the room. After turning to face Mikoto, Minato asked himself, what was that about, as he glanced at his oldest. Mikoto had a similar thought running through her mind and was also looking in the direction where he had been standing. She had recently started to notice that Naruto was growing increasingly aloof and, some might even say, chilly toward his parents. He even made an effort to avoid his siblings, but she soon realized that was impossible because of Mina and Mito's neediness. In addition, he and Itachi and Anko had been spending a lot more time at their compound. To which Mikoto replied, I'm sure it is just nerves. I bet the shock of him being entered in the Chunin exam has made him a little nervous and a little withdrawn. Do you remember Kushina during hers when she was 14? She asked, causing Minato to laugh at the recollection. We were all at that stage when we went to our Chunin exams. When the day finally came, Kushina was so thrilled to be included in the Chunin exams that she became extremely anxious and made multiple attempts to withdraw. However, she made sure everyone knew that she was going to turn into a Chunin and kick their ass to the moon and back when her confidence finally returned. Naruto is probably just handling it differently. We all do handle certain situations differently. After a few moments of sitting, Minato grinned. So he said, yeah, you are probably right. I'm sure that's what it is. Though Kushina will be a little crushed that he won't be here tonight, but I'm sure she will understand. He then bid Makoto farewell and got ready to take on the cage's greatest enemy ever. Documentation Makoto, meanwhile, had a frown on her face as she walked out of the room, thinking about her genin and her blonde student. Naruto, what is wrong? What are you trying to hide? The compound of Uchiha after being shunned at home, Makoto went straight to her oldest son to question him about Naruto's behavior toward his parents. She was seen grinning at his younger sister while they were playing in the backyard. She said as she moved forward, Itachi, I wish to ask you something about Naruto. As he considered his best friend and his domestic issues, Itachi asked with a sorrowful expression, so you noticed then? The way Naruto acts towards his family? Concerned about her students' welfare and the condition of her best friend's and rival's home, she said, yes, I noticed. What is that about? He is so cold towards his parents and tries to push away his siblings. When his mother nodded, he continued, when I first met Naruto we were both 7 as you remember. Well, one of the first things I learned about him was that was very good at Injutsu. Unaware of the direction this was taking, she said, yes, which is to be expected with who his parents are. I am sure that they taught him about Injutsu at a young age as is tradition of the Uzumaki clan. Itachi paused to allow his words to fully register. It wasn't his parents who taught him Injutsu, it was the Sandaime. In fact, his parents didn't even teach him the basics of chakra control, he learned it from Shizune-san. She asked, unsure if she wanted to know the answer, but why would he have to learn such things from other people? Surely if he had asked his parents would have gladly taught him? Itachi simply shook his head and turned to face Hokage Mountain, where 2 figures could be seen perched atop the Yondaime's head. Naruto did ask them to teach him, however ever since the twins were born they have become less attentive towards him. When Naruto asked his father and mother to teach him Injutsu, his father simply gave him a book to give to the Sandaime when he took his lessons. He asked his mother to help him with his chakra and to learn about, and instead of making a shadow clone to do so, she told him that she was too busy and then passed him off to Shizune. With sadness in her eyes, Makoto glanced first at her son, who was shocked, and then at the blonde spot atop the mountain. She found it incomprehensible that 2 of her best friends would behave in such a manner toward their son. Why haven't you or anyone confronted them about how they treat Naruto? Itachi turned to face his mother, smiled slightly, and said, it's not how you think. They aren't doing it on purpose. They're unintentionally favoring the twins. As for why we haven't confronted them, Naruto told everyone not to. He thinks that it won't change anything, so he would rather endure it rather than have his parents think that he is starting things because he is jealous of the twins, which he is not. This greatly perplexed her, as she couldn't understand why he would be happy about that. Even after how his parents have treated him, albeit unintentionally, he loves his younger siblings to death. Mina, Mito, and Eiji mean the world to him, and he would fight to the death to ensure their safety. Grinning piteously at the fact that her student was in pain and she was powerless to help, she questioned, so, then his taijutsu and kenjutsu. They aren't anything that Minato or Kushina use, so who taught him? His taijutsu, as I'm sure you have realized, is a bastardized version of the Senju style and Goken. He was taught the Senju style by Tsunade Sama. However, the Senju style is defensive like the Uchiha style, so in order to counteract that problem he asked Gai-san to teach him Goken. Also, the Senju style and Goken were too restrictive for him, so he adjusted each style to work better with his body type. Itachi was making a face at young Ria, who was chuckling at her large older brother. Itachi's eyes were sharper than hers, despite his youth, so she asked, I thought it seemed familiar, though I have trouble following it with my Sharingan. Do you have the same problem? Yes, I have much trouble following it since his style is more free-form than the normal structured style of either style. Though I would be surprised if it was like that on purpose. Naruto and I are friends as well as rivals, so it would make sense for him to have something to counteract my eyes. You asked about his kenjutsu, correct? Itachi responded, continuing to play with Ria. As she watched her youngest and oldest children play, she smiled and said, "Yes, I did. I have never seen anything like it in all of Hai no Kuni. That would be because it is from Testu no Kuni and has never been used or mastered as, like his taijutsu, it is free-formed." Apparently Mifune Sama saw that Naruto was having trouble with his first kill and found Naruto training in Kenjutsu, which at that point he didn't even have a style, just natural talent. They sparred while we waited out the storm at night. When we left, Mifune left him a scroll with the footwork and a challenge for him to become strong enough to face him on an equal footing one day. He said while picking up Ria to lock her up for the night over what she'd been told. In an attempt to assist the young boy she saw as a nephew, she thought, "I will have to talk to Naruto to get the full story from him," though you can't help but be impressed that he has come so far with so little help. Alongside Naruto, Sarutobi asked Naruto, "So you are going to be in the Chunin exams? Are you excited?" As they sat atop the Shodem Hokage's head on the Hokage monument and gazed over the village as the sun started to set and nightfall descended. Naruto smiled excitedly at him next to him. "I am. I really want to test myself against other strong people from the other villages. The stronger the better, I say. Well, remember not to get into over your head. If you get too overconfident and cocky, then it may lead to your downfall. I have seen it do that to my shinobi during my life." Sarutobi gently corrected Naruto. His statement, "I know, but I am just excited, that's all," was a radical departure from his previous demeanor. He said, "Well, that is good then. Will you say goodbye to Tsunade and Shizune before you leave?" Naruto nodded rapidly. "All right. Those two will miss having their little blonde sunshine away for a while. I know they will miss you while you're gone." Sarutobi then chuckled at Naruto's pout in response to being referred to as a blonde sunshine. "I will also miss them, but not for very long. Additionally, you will all come watch me if I advance to the final round, right?" Hiruzen said, "Just try and stop us," which caused Naruto to smile broadly. He reasoned that you would need an army of shinobi and more to stop Tsunade from going, because even though Shizune had a strong affection for the young blonde Uzumaki, Tsunade genuinely loved and cared for Naruto in the same maternal manner that she did for Nawaki. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Naruto knew that Sarutobi was slipping into his Kami no Shinobi mode when he shook his head, placed a hand on his shoulder, and gave him a serious look while telling him to listen carefully. "There's a chance that shinobi from other villages will recognize you based on your name and appearance because they will be present. You must be alert because ninjas from Kumo and Iwa will probably be taking part," he said, and Naruto nodded. "Especially after the Kumo incident here a year ago, we have become wary around them. I'm still baffled as to why the alliance never materialized. The Raikage claimed that the Kumo.nin had carried out the kidnapping on his own initiative and that he was unaware of it. His chakra Gigi was palpable to me. His chakra would have been all over the place if he had been lying. He was being honest." "Yes, but regrettably, Naruto, even with that assertion, the Shinobi Council and your father would not be persuaded by the words of a single genin. Additionally, your mother already disliked their presence in the village because of her prior encounters with Kumo." "Yes, because those two were going to listen to me even if it was enough," Naruto responded sarcastically, sorting a little, which was very unusual for him. The statement caused Hiruzen to scowl a little, but Naruto swiftly shifted the topic. "I assume that utilizing my clandestine ancestry is also strictly prohibited for the Chunin examinations." Even though he already knew the answer, he said, "Yes, Naruto, it is imperative that no one knows you have the Mokuton until you are older and strong enough to fight off most threats. Because if other villages find out, they might try to have me removed." As Hiruzen nodded his head, he asked, "One of the most powerful bloodlines in the world is acknowledged to be the Mokuton Naruto. Although the Sharingan is its only rival, many people think it is better than Dojutsu. Many people will want the ability to subdue and control a tail beast's power." As Hiruzen's face darkened slightly, he added, "Plus there are people in the village that might try to take advantage of it." Yes. His thoughts wandered to a few council members who were known to be rather power-hungry before settling on his former teammate and Konoha's warhawk, Danzo. There are those in the shadow of the Konoha that will try to use that power, which could end up hurting the Leaf more than helping it, he said. Before Naruto and Hiruzen fell silent, he pondered, if Danzo ever gets his claws into Naruto, the man would not stop until Konoha is under his control. While the other considered the challenges his surrogate grandson would eventually encounter, the first considered who and what he would encounter in the future. After 5 days, as they made their way to the enormous gate of the Sunagakure, which was constructed of stone and had 2 Chunin guards like the ones Konoha had placed at the gate, Team 13 trekked through the desert sands while wearing a cloak. As Makoto removed her hood and revealed her Konoha headband, one of the Chunin said, "Halt. State your names and purpose for coming to the Sunagakure." She handed some forms to the Chunin, who reviewed them. "Makoto Uchiha with her Genin team, here for the Chunin exams," she said. The guards looked for a minute before nodding their heads. "Don't you all seem a bit late? The majority of the team is either there already or on their way there as the exams begin in an hour. On the way here, we were caught in a sandstorm and had to seek shelter. We had to bunker down for a day to wait out the storm, but we should have been here yesterday afternoon. Given that sandstorms were frequent in the Suna Desert and that you would probably not survive if you were caught in one or tried to brave it," the Chunin both nodded in understanding. "All right, so the academy building on the west side of the village is where the Chunin exams are being held." As Makoto and the three genin nodded and continued on their way, one of the Chunin remarked, "You will likely see a few team heads in that direction, so just follow them." With haste, Team 13 entered the gates and proceeded to the Desert Possum Hotel, where they were staying. While Naruto, Itachi, and Anko kept the items they knew they would need for these tests, they dropped off their bags when they arrived. After finishing, Makoto guided the three of them to the academy building on the east side, where they saw a few other teams from the other villages. One was from the rain, and if the headbands were any indication, it was from Grass Country. They remained vigilant until they reached the academy building 10 minutes later, at which point Makoto paused at the doorway and turned to face her team, a proud smile tarnishing her face. "Everything you need is here, right?" The three nodded at her as she asked. "As you are about to accomplish something that very few people can claim to have accomplished in a single year, know that the three of you have made me extremely proud over the past year. If what I have witnessed from the three of you is any indication, I am confident that you will all go on to achieve great things. I know all three of you can do well on this test, but keep in mind that things won't always go as planned. Therefore, examine the underside and identify items that might not seem like much but will ultimately be crucial to these tests." Anko, Itachi, and Naruto bowed to their mother and, in Itachi's case, their teacher with smiles. "We appreciate you believing in us, Makoto Sensei/Ka.san, and guiding us to this stage of our ninja careers. We probably wouldn't have made it this far without you." Makoto leaned down and kissed each of their foreheads, holding her lips on Itachi's for a little longer than Naruto and Anko's while fighting back tears. Despite being their sensei for just a year, she had cherished every second of being able to instruct her oldest son and his two companions. As Makoto stood aside and gave them permission to enter the building, they reaffirmed their pledge to do their best and uphold your teachings. She muttered to herself, "How them all and show the world why the three of you will one day be legends," as she watched them leave. In order to observe her team's progress on the test, she took a deep breath, sunshined away, and joined the other Jonin instructors. Alongside Team 13 as the three of them moved through the academy's corridors, Naruto walked in the middle, Itachi to his right, and Anko to his left. A Chunin proctor told them as soon as they entered that the exam would take place in room 3A on the third floor. The three of them realized something was wrong with this exam as soon as the man said that. They saw room 3A clearly marked as they ascended the academy building's stairs, and they watched as a Grass.Nin team entered the room. Anko initially moved forward, unconcerned, and headed for the door, but she halted when she felt Itachi and Naruto's hands rest on her shoulders. He said, "Hold up, Anko, this is not our floor." She gave him a perplexed look. "However, the door is directly there. 3A, she said, but based on their expressions, she assumed that wasn't entirely true. Again, what was the room number? As Anko idly informed him that it was 3A, he inquired, "All right, so how many flights of stairs have we climbed so far?" "2A. She trailed off, but then her eyes widened slightly as she understood what he was saying. She turned back to face the sign that read 3A, and after staring at it intently for a while, she noticed the words flicker. She whispered, "A genjutsu," while the other two nodded. She groaned as Itachi smirked amusedly and Naruto put an arm around her shoulders. "Oh, I can't believe I almost fell for that," she complained. "Don't be alarmed, Anko. Chan. And even the best of us will experience it. I assume the purpose of that genjutsu is to identify the groups that are not prepared for the tests. They are not prepared if they are unable to see through such a basic genjutsu." As they observed Anko's eyes light up with passion as her determination to ace the tests grew even more intense, they added, "Since we noticed it, it means we are ready. What are we waiting for, then? Come on, let's kick some ass." As she took Itachi's and Naruto's hands and started pulling them up the third flight of stairs, she exclaimed. When they eventually reached their floor, they saw the actual door they needed, and they narrowed their eyes to check if it was a genjutsu. but their faces soon relaxed when they realized it was the real one. After taking a deep breath, they walked together, slid the door open, and entered. They were a little anxious when they entered, but they never expressed it. There were genin teams all over the room that appeared much older than they actually were. Many of them were in their teens, and they could see that the oldest must have been around 16. One of them snorted, "Great, more kids," but Naruto soon saw that many of them were staring at him. "I recognize that child. Do you not believe that he is the child of Kiroi Seiko, Yellow Flash?" While others pondered the concept, another whispered. Another said, "If he is, then this exam has got more fun," citing his Kumo origins from his headband. "If he is, then it must mean he is the Beniheim's Crimson Princess son too." As he, Itachi, and Anko went to stand on one of the rear walls, Naruto breathed peacefully. Anko muttered, "There are a lot of teams here," as she surveyed the teams before grinning frighteningly. "It just means there are more people to cut and make bleed." Both Naruto and Itachi rolled their eyes at their female teammate, but they thought it was good that she was at least self-assured. They were both self-assured, but they were aware that being overconfident could easily result in someone being killed. After deciding to investigate the other teams, Naruto looked at each one to see what country they were from and to look for any weaknesses he believed they might have. When he first saw that many of them came from smaller nations like Grass, Rain, and even Bird Country, Naruto assumed that they needed more shinobi at the Chunin level because they were smaller. He noticed that there were no teams from Kiri, but he already knew why, and there were about 2 from Kumo that kept stealing glances at him. Konoha soon learned that a civil war had broken out in the Hidden Mist village, and that the Mizukage, also known as Yagura, was currently engaged in combat with rebel forces who wanted him to leave. Naruto quickly concluded that Yagura was not a man who should be left in charge of an entire village because, according to Hiruzen, he saw them as a threat and wanted the bloodline eradicated. He glanced over the team again, about to turn away after seeing every team, but his gaze was drawn to a team leaning against the opposite wall on the other side of the room. He recognized them right away from their headbands as being from Iwa, and they appeared to be an intriguing trio. He also appeared intrigued by them, as they appeared to be about the same age as Naruto, Itachi, and Anko. The first one he saw was the largest of them, easily the size of a middle-aged teen, and quite plump. He was dressed in typical red Iwa garb, and his features included a huge round nose that protruded like a sore thumb. Despite this, the boy's joyful, carefree expression suggested that he was quite innocent and childlike. The second male member, whose long straw blonde hair covered part of his left eye, was the one who, for some reason, just made Naruto feel uneasy. He wore dark blue clothes that were similar to Itachi's, and his hand was constantly experimenting with some white clay, seemingly shaping it into various shapes. Naruto assumed that he also sensed something strange about the blonde boy because he could see that Itachi had focused on the same group and had his Sharingan activated very subtly. Itachi was concentrating on Naruto when his gaze shifted to the last and only girl in the group. She was very attractive, with dark hair that ended just below her chin, and she was dressed similarly to the big kid, except that her left leg was a mesh coat rather than red pants. Naruto noticed that she turned her head and looked at him when he started at her, and that her eyes were a very exotic shade of pink. He thought, her eyes are really pretty, since he had never seen such a color before he saw her frown slightly and narrow her eyes at him. As she looked away from him once more, a tiny puff of smoke appeared in front of the class, revealing the shape of Asuna Kunoichi. She was obviously a Jonin, and even though she appeared young, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko could tell she had a lot of power behind her and was an experienced shinobi. She must have been in her early to mid-20s, with fair skin, pupilless brown eyes that looked very cold, and dark green hair with 2 orange bangs framing her face. She wore a sleeveless, backless top and short, tight pants with 2 lapels on the front and back, an obi around her waist, purple arm warmers that reached her shoulders, and bandages around her ankles and tights. "All right, meatbags, pay attention and don't talk over me. I am Pakura, and I will serve as your proctor for the duration of the Chunin exams. I will serve as your judge, jury, and executioner until the exams are over. If I give you instructions, you follow them. Does that make sense?" As everyone nodded their heads, she said. As everyone started to move around, she said, "Go around the tables and sit in the seat with your name on it." When Naruto arrived at the front, he discovered that he was seated next to the Iwa Kunoichi, who chose to ignore him entirely and not even give him a glance. Itachi was in the second last row and Anko was in the center of the room. The 3 of them were completely apart. Exam papers were spread out in front of them by some of the station Chunin who had entered the room. "The first test is a written exam," she stated. Answer the questions as best as you can, however be warned that if you are caught cheating, you and your teammates will be sent out of this room and you will fail the Chunin exams. So, Naruto thought, no pressure then. Before we end the test and give you the option to respond to the 10th question, you have 50 minutes to complete the 9 questions on the paper. As the men of the genin put their heads down and started writing, she said, your time will begin now. As he started reading the question, Naruto also lowered his head, but as soon as he saw the questions, he realized something was wrong with the test. Surely they can't expect us to be aware of this? As he could respond to 3 or 4 of the questions, he was a little perplexed by the others, which he realized were ones that some jonin would likely not even be familiar with. He started to stealthily look around the room and said, there is something about this. Many complained that they weren't cheating, but it didn't matter because they were sent out if they didn't comply quietly. As he was doing this, some of the Chunin judges started calling out numbers and kicking some of the people out of the room. Gazing to his side, he was a little taken aback to see that Iwakuni no Ichi had a forehead protector fastened to her wrist, which she was using as a reflector to view the exam sheet from the person behind her. His thoughts were, she is cheating and not getting caught, as he turned to look for his teammates. He noticed that Anko had a small snake next to her that was transmitting the answers from the person behind her, while Itachi had his Sharingan on and was mimicking the hand gestures of the man in front of him. We must be dishonest. When it finally dawned on him, he thought, that's the goal of the first exam. With a slight smirk on his face, he answered the question he knew the answer to before placing his hands behind his head, leaning back in the chair, and closing his eyes to sense the chakra of everyone in the room. He could sense that most were anxious and afraid, while only a handful were staying together. Some of the Chunin proctors stared at Naruto in shock, and they saw one hand grab the pencil from the desk, write a few lines, and then put it down. Naruto continued to do this for the remainder of the 50 minutes. Concerned about the child's trick, Pakura arched an eyebrow at him. Pakura abruptly said, everyone pencil down and listen up, drawing everyone's attention to herself as they all followed her instructions. All right, are you prepared for the last query? They all nodded their heads in agreement as Pakura asked. She flared her ki and said, good, because know now if you quit you will be disqualified from the exams. However, if you choose to take it and you fail, you will never get promoted and will remain a genin for the rest of your life. This caused panic and anxiety in the majority of the room, as many people started yelling at her, telling her that it was unfair. However, while the others complained, Konoha and Iwa's ninja remained silent. Not wanting to take the chance, Naruto watched as roughly 4 teams stood up and left the room. You believe you possess the necessary skills, Gaki? You believe you can succeed because of who you are? Pakura addressed Naruto, hoping to gauge the blonde boy's toughness, readiness, and reaction to the jab. However, Naruto simply shrugged in response to her query, drawing attention from everyone, including the Iwa girl standing next to him. I don't really know, but I do know that I won't let your little trick of trying to demoralize us get to me. The main question here is whether or not we are prepared to take a big risk. Since we are shinobi, each time we leave our village and embark on a mission, we will be putting our lives in danger. I wouldn't be waiting for you to ask us the 10th question, will I Proctor.san? If I wasn't prepared to take those chances. Oh, and Proctor.san, just to be clear, I'm not doing this because of my parents' personalities. I honestly don't give a damn about what you or anybody else thinks. I think I'm ready, so I'm doing this for myself. Therefore, don't imply that I will get away with it because of my last name. That is the last thing I want to happen. His brief speech gave them the strength they needed to stay put, and Pakura noticed that others who had been about to leave were now sitting still as his 2 teammates smiled. Pakura let out a sigh and then glared at everyone. In order to intimidate the genin, Pakura increased her chakra levels. This worked as she demonstrated her power. For those who are still here, then I will tell you all this now, she said. Uapass. Many people looked perplexed and inquired about the 10th question when she spoke. She then started to explain that everyone who was left had advanced to the second section of the test, much to their relief and to others' delight, and that the 10th question was the decision to risk continuing. As many people shrugged their shoulders and joined their teams, she said, now that the first part is over, go and get in your teams. Naruto shrugged and Anko remarked, pretty nice speech you gave us all there. I tried my hardest. I hope you enjoyed it. As Itachi nodded in agreement, she added, it was very informative, plus it's probably what made everyone else stay here. Naruto turned to see the Iwa girl he was sitting next to staring at him with an unreadable expression before turning her head away. Pay attention. With a cunning smile on her face, Pakura called out to get everyone's attention, saying, now that the first test is over, we can begin the second. Naruto started to notice that the other Chunin proctors had disappeared from view. Kai. She said this while using her right hand to seal her hand. Suddenly, little paper notes started to shine all around them, just like explosive notes did, but instead of an explosion, a stream of gas started to shoot out. All of the teams felt sleepy as soon as the gas hit them, and they started to drop to the ground one by one. Turn off the gas. Then, what on earth is the second exam? As Anko passed out in front of him and fell asleep, Naruto thought to himself, Itachi will fall next, and then Naruto will fall last in the room. After that, Pakura reappeared with a dozen or so other shinobi, including Makoto, who advanced on her group. She took hold of the three of them and shunshined away, just like the other senseis did with their genin teams, saying, "You three have done well to get past the first exam, but now the second exam will be much harder and it will test your teamwork and your survival skills." Pakura went around the room and started gathering up the papers after they left. However, when she arrived at Naruto, she discovered that some of the written answers were accurate, and he had started playing tic-tac-toe on the other question. She shook her head and snorted when she saw it. As she continued to gather the papers, she thought, I just passed a genin that did not even take this first exam seriously and who will no doubt be a big player in this exam. As she finished gathering the papers and left the now empty classroom, she thought, this year's Chunin exams are going to be an interest, that is for sure.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.